These dreams, they go on when we close our eyes. We're the Starks. And I didn't make up any more lyrics. Sorry. That was very spontaneous. Hi, guys. Wolf Dreams time. Say hi to Grey Waste Tim, who's a little pixelated right now. We know he's beautiful, though, behind the pixelation. Sorry, I should have checked that before we went. Yeah, you're a little fuzzy, Tim. And I don't mean beard fuzzy. No, it's not. He's wiping off. You can't wipe the pixelation, the JPEG compression off your lens, Tim. That's cool. Hopefully it'll jump back in. I guess it's like a. If it doesn't adjust, Tim, maybe you should bounce out and call back in to see if we get a better connection.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like it might be. No, it's still kind of. Yeah, it's still super low res. Well, you guys know Tim is beautiful. So this is going to be an action-packed stream here. I guess I could have shoehorned it into the iceberg format, but basically there's 3 characters who have wolf dreams. And then one bonus Varamir Six Skins mention that we'll do as well. But it's basically Jon, Arya, and Bran. And Arya and Bran have a ton of wolf dreams. Jon has a few. And we're going to read through basically every time that you're in the wolf's POV. So it is both wolf dreams and straight up warging experiences. Because the wolf dreams are essentially, part of the warging experience. And the Stark children, it's like the wolf dreams kind of lead to the full skin changing thing. It is how they get introduced to the idea of possessing, astrally projecting themselves into their wolves, possessing them, and playing wolf LARPing away through Westeros. So, and LARP, of course, live action RPG. If you've never heard that term, it just means acting like you're playing a video game in real life. So, hey folks, make sure you're subscribed to Grey Waste Tim's channel, because Grey Waste Tim has just made an awesome video about Howlington, which I watched this morning, and it's very good. It was highly informative. Really enjoyed it, and Tim, I almost want to do a live stream with you so we can study Alice, Melisandre, and Mad Donnell, and just see all the character parallels we can line up, and I really think there might be something there.
Yeah, I'd definitely be down for that. And thank you to everyone who watched. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you might not have heard. That video put me over YouTube's watch time requirements. So I got my approval for AdSense, and I'm currently in the approval process to get the channel monetized. It says it takes about 30 days for that. So hopefully within the next month, the next time I do a stream, we can have super chats and all that, little extra income revenue.
Which means that we all need to help Tim wash his potty mouth away and learn to stop saying F-bombs and all kinds of other, very visceral metaphors that Tim will drop on us out of nowhere. You got to be careful there, Tim. You get your new monetization demonetization. But no, congratulations. That's awesome. And we are, of course, happy to have you as part of the Myth fam and the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom. Oh, I would like it when he cusses too, Samantha. Don't worry. We're just, trying to conform to the man, keeping us down.
Hey, sometimes my cusses are just because I'm reading what George wrote.
Yeah, there's Maynard James, filthy plum raven. He's got a filthy mouth. Well, let's get into it, because there's a lot. There's more than you'd think. And of course, I did also, like I said, this is anything that has to do with wolf dreams. There's like a couple of Bran talking to Jojen about his wolf dreams quotes and things like that as well. So we're going to start in Clash of Kings. So Bran's like, the only real dream that Bran has in a Game of Thrones is his coma dream, where he's flying over the whole world and he's falling. It's not really a wolf dream. There's not really any wolves in it. It is more of a green seer kind of a dream. So we've talked about that before. I did not include that one because, like I said, it's not really a wolf dream. There's no wolves in it at all. So that's Bran's A Game of Thrones vision. But in Clash is when we start getting the actual wolf dreams. So I will go ahead and pull up our first one. And what I have, guys, is I've got a list of quotes, like the first line here, so that I can easily look up each line. We need to be in the right book, though. That's Game of Thrones. We want Clash of Kings. That would help. And then, so I can pull up the quote, and then boom. See, Tim? Look, there it is. Oh. See, Tim? It's right there. All right. So Bran preferred the hard stone of the window seat to the comforts of his feather bed and blankets. A bed, the walls pressed close, and the ceiling hung heavy above him. A bed, the room was his cell and Winterfell his prison. Yet outside the window, his wide world still called. So again, you could see George preparing Bran for his future life, right? Like, this is a perfect description of him being in Bloodraven's cave. He's in prison, in a bed. It's dark. The walls are pressing. The ceiling is pressing. But outside his window, there's the whole world that he can see. So, yeah. This is the sort of poetic rhyming that makes... It's not even foreshadowing. I mean, I guess it's foreshadowing, Tim, but it's not the kind of thing that would make you guess. When you read it, it reads very normally. It doesn't read like a prophecy. But it's just like knowing where his plot goes, you can see the parallelism and the sort of thematic forming up of his components of his life, you know, being in a little prison. His body is like a prison, but still I roam. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wanda. just getting loose here.
But but him preferring the hard stone is...
Sorry, you can just go forever with that. Oh, whoa, yeah. It really does clear out the pipes. We got to call this the James Hetfield vocal warm-up. All right. I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead. It's safe.
Yeah, him preferring the hard stone. It's like, well, at the time of if you're first reading this book, you don't like that. That just seems like a normal line. But us having 5 books and 12 years to pass and think on this, now we know. Well, no, that's foreshadowing him sitting on a weirwood throne. The petrified wood is now weirwood stone that he is sitting on a throne, and him looking out his window is him looking through the weirwood net out at the entire world outside.
Yeah, it's like a one part Bloodraven's cave and one part Winterfell crypts, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the crypts really do have so many good parallels to the cave, but it's just more petrified and dead even than Bloodraven's cave. But of course, Bloodraven's cave full of skulls and bones and things as well. So it's pretty deathly. It's pretty deathly hallow. So he could not walk, nor climb, nor hunt, nor fight with a wooden sword as once he had, but he could still look. He liked to watch the windows begin to glow all over Winterfell as candles and hearth fires were lit behind the diamond panes of tower and hall. That's a really beautiful passage just on its own right there. You can sort of picture that. The pre-dawn darkness, the castle, a little bit of fog, the windows begin to light up. That brings you there. It's a nice bit of writing. And he loved to listen to the direwolves sing to the stars, Tim. We forgot members of the cult of starry wisdom, Quaithe, Marwyn, the direwolves. Forgot the direwolves. Of late, he often dreamed of wolves, Tim. They are talking to me, brother to brother, he told himself when the direwolves howled. He could almost understand them. Not quite. Not truly, but almost. As if they were singing in a language he had once known and somehow forgotten. The Walders might be scared of them, but the Starks had wolf blood. Old Nan told him so. Though it is stronger in some than in others, she warned. That's interesting that Old Nan knows about the whole wolf blood mystique. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, that's one of those questions of it's why we need more Dunk and Egg novels as to what kind of person was Old Nan when she was a young woman. Where's she from? Because she's obviously a woman who's been around. So it's but where are you from? What's your origin story? who told you these stories? Like, are these things you made up on your own, or is she telling Bran stories, the same stories she had growing up, or is she like the author of some of these things that she's telling him?
Hey, so let me just check the volume real quick. Somebody was saying it's quiet. It shouldn't be quiet. It's looking good on my end. But let me know if one of us is louder than the other. That's the main thing, is that we need to be equal volume. As long as that's going. But yeah, the wolf blood, I like this passage because it's like Bran is very archetypal here. He's speaking of the Starks as a family, when it's like, oh, we used to understand the language of the wolves. We used to fight with wooden swords. That wooden sword thing is kind of a metaphor, but it's like using the trees, tree magic as your weapon. And obviously, yeah, the first men used to speak the true tongue, which is the tongue that, the ravens and the animals can understand. So this is all lore dumping in a very poetic kind of way here. So Summer's howls were long and sad, full of grief and longing. Shaggy dogs were more savage. Their voices echoed through the yards and halls until the castle rang, and it seemed as though some great pack of direwolves haunted Winterfell instead of only two. Two where there had once been six. Do they miss their brothers and sisters too, Bran wondered. Are they calling to Grey Wind and Ghost, to Nymeria and Lady's Shade? Do they want them to come home and be back together? You want to pick it up here?
Who can know the mind of a wolf? Sir Roderick Castle said when Bran asked him why they howled. Bran's lady mother had named him Castellan of Winterfell in her absence, and his duties left him little time for idle questions. It's freedom they're calling for, declared Farland, who was kennel master and had no more love for the direwolves than his hounds did. Yep. They don't like being walled up, and who's to blame them? Wild things belong in the wild, not in a castle. They want to hunt, agreed Gage, the cook, as he tossed cubes of suet in a great kettle of stew. A wolf smells better than any man. Like as not, they've caught the scent of prey.
So one thing, Tim, that I like here is, Winterfell is very much like, it's a castle, but it's in the north. And so it's very rustic. And even though you're in the castle, the kinds of things you hear people say are like the things that people say in the country. Wild things belong in the wild, not in a castle. It's just like whoever that is, the person that says that, like, they obviously have done some hunting and trapping in their life. They've lived out in the forest. They know about wild things, but they're in Winterfell now. So just I love the realism of that, of Winterfell being so connected to the wild. And like this, it's not really that civilized compared to King's Landing, right? So it's some old trapper,
Civilized.
Gage the cook. He's like, oh yeah, they want to hunt. They're wolves. They like hunting. I mean, it's true, but all right, keep going.
Maester Louis did not think so. Wolves often howl at the moon. These are howling at the comet. See how bright it is, Bran? Perchance they think it is the moon. So the comet, and they think it is the moon, and I think that might be a setup for the comet. Sort of if the comet is sort of like hurtling towards the moon, then that would be foreshadowing of some kind of impact.
Yeah, it's also, this is one of the passages that makes me wonder about the red comet that we have now being like a remnant of the moon that was destroyed. In the Thundar intro that I have played several times, and if you've never seen it, go look it up on YouTube. I can't play it or they'll demonetize me, but Thundar the Barbarian, it's an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and the intro of the show that plays every episode has a red comet that streaks in between the Earth and the moon, and it cracks the moon, and it strips the Earth of its atmosphere and plunges the world back into an age of swords and sorcery, and all the technology goes away, and it's Thundar time, and he's kind of like He-Man or Conan, but he has a glowing sun sword that looks just like Dawn, okay? And the thing about that, Tim, is that the red comet in this Thundar cartoon clip is actually a rogue planet from outside the solar system. It's not a comet. So it's like a supersized comet, which is one of the things we talked about. Like, to break a moon, it's not even a comet that we're talking about. It's like a death-sized comet. I mean, this is... Yeah, I mean, obviously, fantasy world, George isn't thinking too hard about the mechanics, but in any case, it's got to be a huge comet to break a moon. So it could be that after that explosion, the thing that's left is a piece of the moon that's like continuing on the orbit. Or you could say the comet drank the blood of the moon. There's a lot of ways in which you could equate that. But yeah, it could be that the red comet that is circling, that's the other moon now. You know, like we've got one moon in the sky, that's the ice moon, you know, symbolically or whatever. The red comet could be the other moon, potentially. And if you think about Melisandre, she's the one that really leads me in that direction because she is a moon maiden, but also a red comet. So let's talk about wolf dreams, though, unless you have a thought about comets.
Oh, no. I do have a thought on this next line, though. So, when Bran repeated that to Osha, she laughed aloud. Your wolves have more wit than your maester, the wildling woman said. They know truths the gray man has forgotten. The way she said it made him shiver, and when he asked what the comet meant, she answered, blood and fire, boy, and nothing sweet. So, so on a symbolic level, this is her talking about, this could mean the return of dragons, and also the return of the Targaryens through Dany, because fire and blood being their house words. But on a literal sense, blood and fire it's the wars to come and all the wars to follow. Because the War of the Five Kings never truly ends. Even though Robb and Renly and Balon Greyjoy pass away, Stannis is still floating about. Joffrey's dead. Tommen's a boy king. Euron's now running around. It never really ended. It just sort of changed players a little bit and changed setting, but it's still very much an ongoing conflict.
Yeah, and classically, comets frequently or even usually were seen as harbingers of doom. Sometimes they were seen as more wondrous things or more spiritual things, but there's definitely a lingering idea that something flying over the earth like that could fall down to the earth and blow everything up. It's happened before. You know, in particular, the Native Americans have a couple of really good comet disaster myths. Of course, they've been occupying the Americas contiguously for 16,000 years. So in some cases, there is that long of a mythical memory that is unbroken. So, yeah, and if you look at, you know, in certainly in like Roman in the Roman and Greek world, the comets were generally seen as harbingers of dramatic change, war, revolution, things like that. So, I think that's kind of what Osha is reflecting on a basic level. Obviously, like you said, we're thinking about dragons and stuff like that, but like blood and fire and nothing sweet. She's basically saying, yeah, doom, destruction, upheaval, all that stuff, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look how big it is.
And she's aware of the others. Her husband had died and been whited, and that's the thing that drove her south in the first place. So she knows like bad things are coming, and it's only going to get worse.
Indeed. As she's read George's older works. She knows how this story goes. So, and of course, in George's sci-fi stuff, he has a red comet. It's the Volcran spaceship, and it serves this. It's like a spaceship from another time or something. I don't know the whole bit of it, but basically, it visits different worlds and galaxies and causes dramatic change, and it appears like a red comet in the sky. So. It's just a case of George having similar narrative roles in his different stories, even as he switches genres. You know, from a spaceship, it becomes a comet, but it serves a lot of the same roles. Anyways, wolf dreams. It's interesting that the wolves are tuning into the moon and the comet and stuff like that. It's important to realize like it's not solely the dominion of Targaryens and dragons to think about the stars and comets and stuff like that. Like the weirwoods are also tied to the stars. So, anyway, Bran asked Septon Chael about the comet while they were sorting through some scrolls snatched from the library fire. "It is the sword that slays the season," he replied, and soon after the White Raven came from Old Town, bringing word of autumn. So doubtless, he was right. Though old Nan did not think so, and she'd lived longer than any of them. "Dragons," she said, lifting her head and sniffing. She was near blind and could not see the comet, yet she claimed she could smell it. And that's some out in the woods shit right there. That's great. "It be dragons, boy," she insisted. Bran got no princes from Nan, no more than he ever had. Hodor said only, "Hodor." And that's all he ever said. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to have to hold the door when that comet comes back around." Unfortunately. Yeah. And still the direwolves howled Tim. The guards on the walls muttered curses. Hounds in the kennels barked furiously. Horses kicked at their stalls. The Walders shivered by their fire. And even Maester Luwin complained of sleepless nights. Only Bran did not mind. Sir Roderick had confined the wolves to the Godswood after Shaggy Dog had bit little Walder. But the stones of Winterfell played queer tricks with the sound. And sometimes it sounded as if they were in the yard right below Bran's window. Other times he would have sworn they were up on the curtain walls, loping around like sentries. He wished that he could see them. Interesting, all the language here. It's like Winterfell is haunted by ghost wolves. The wolves are patrolling the yard and the wall walks. It's just continuing to enhance this idea like the Starks are wolves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see here. He could see the comet hanging above the guards' hall in the bell tower, and farther back the first keep, squat and round, its gargoyles black shapes against the bruised purple dusk. Once Bran had known every stone of those buildings, inside and out. He had climbed them all, scampering up walls as easily as other boys ran downstairs. The rooftops had been his secret place, and the crows atop the broken tower his special friends. And then he had fallen. You go ahead and pick it up.
Bran did not remember falling, yet they say he had, so he supposed it must have been true. He had almost died. When he saw the weather-worn gargoyles atop the first keep where it happened, he got a queer tight feeling in his belly, and now he could not climb, nor walk, nor run, nor sword fight, and the dreams he dreamt of knighthood had soured in his head. Okay, so so it's kind of like he has that bit of amnesia because he doesn't remember falling and he doesn't remember what exactly happened, which would be him catching Jaime and Cersei in the act. But when he sees the gargoyle and it gives him that feeling, that's just like a trigger in his mind of something happened. I know something happened, but I can't piece it together. And it is strange like that. It hasn't it's a question of, is it going to resurface? Because Bran hasn't seen Jaime since. And so it's wondering, like, if Bran sees Jaime, is it all going to come rushing back? Is he going to have that moment of, it was you, you did this to me? Because he still hasn't thought back on, like, what caused him to fall in this story so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like how that's written, that he like blocks it out. He looks at it and he gets tight, but he can't remember why. It's pretty it's a pretty good what am I saying? It's a pretty good job of like writing somebody with that kind of trauma that's mixed with like a concussion, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then we see that in his dream, he begins to think about Jaime and stuff, and then even the three-eyed crow's like, "Nah, don't think about that right now. I got something else I need you to do. We'll deal with that eventually." No time for your trauma, Bran. You have to save the world. So real quick, I got a PayPal. By the way, you can support the program with the PayPal link in the description. Very much appreciated. Moving Fund is collecting funds, so appreciate that. Michael says, "Can't wait for more dream symbolism in Bran's fly or fall dream, aka the comet dream that we did not read because it doesn't have wolves. He sees failed green seers impaled below him on the ice spires. Other dreamers is what they're called. When Damp Hair is tripping on Shade of the Evening in his Winds of Winter chapter, he sees all the gods impaled before Euron. Is this evidence for historical weirwood net origin for beings remembered as gods like Garth? Well, it does kind of work. It does kind of fit. We see the motif also at the Eyrie, where like the moon door is a weirwood door. You know, it's a door to the death realm, and it's a weirwood door, just like the Black Gate or anything else. And people fly out of the door, but they fall instead and die. And so that mimics Bran's dream where he's falling, and if he doesn't fly, he will fall to an icy death, like the other dreamers. So it just kind of implies that the others are, in some sense, green seers that took a wrong turn, or who were kicked out of the nest, I think, is actually the best symbolism, Tim, especially with the Eyrie. It's literally a nest. And like the people kicked out of the moon door, they're kicked out of the nest. Almost like a, you know, two baby birds fighting, or when one of the kind of birds that, the cuckoo. That lays, yeah, thank you. Whatever. You get it.
Well, no, that like makes sense too, because Sansa is our little bird. She's at the Vale, and so she has all that little bird imagery. So for it to be a nest, it makes perfect sense with her there.
Yep, and she will be flying. So yes, to answer Michael's question, it does all fit. The impaled gods, it's probably the same imagery that Martin is using. It's not an icy connotation, but yeah, these dead gods, the others are like dead gods in a sense. So yeah, it's at least thematically parallel, if not exactly talking about the same thing. Yeah, this Sansa Moondoor chapter, it has been a minute. It's one of the best chapters. We're definitely going to read The Wayward Bride again because they demonetized that chapter. So, okay. Is it Summer had howled? Is that where we are?
Yeah, Summer had howled the day Bran had fallen, and for a long time after, as he lay broken in his bed. Robb had told him so before he went away to war. Summer had mourned for him, and Shaggy Dog and Grey Wind had joined in his grief. And the night the bloody raven had brought word of their father's death. The wolves had known that too. Bran had been in the Maester's turret with Rickon talking of the children of the forest when Summer and Shaggy Dog had drowned out Lewin with their howls. Who are they mourning now? Had some enemy slain the king in the north, who used to be his brother Robb? Had his bastard brother Jon Snow fallen from the wall? Had his mother died, or one of his sisters? Or was this something else, as Maester and Septon and old Nan seemed to think? If I were truly a dire wolf, I would understand the song, he thought, wistfully. In his wolf dreams, he could race up the sides of mountains, jagged, icy mountains taller than any tower, and stand at the summit beneath the full moon with all the world below him, the way it used to be. Woo! Bran cried tentatively. He cupped his hands around his mouth and lifted his head to the comet. This is like such a little kid thing to do. Woo! Woo!
It's kind of delightful, yeah.
Yeah. I used to do the same thing when I was a kid when there was a full moon. He howled. It sounded stupid, high and hollow and quavering. A little boy's howl, not a wolf's. Yet Summer gave answer, his deep voice drowning out Bran's thin. I'm kind of relying on the next page.
Oh, you don't have a Kindle?
No, I don't have.
Oh, I'm
I don't
sorry,
have
Tim.
Search of Ice and Fire only gives you a few lines.
Oh, okay. I am so sorry. I should have clarified that before we started. I apologize. Well, let me hang on a second. I've got a little something for the chat that I just pulled up. Let me just get rid of this. Boom. We got some artwork. His deep voice drowning out Bran's thin one, and Shaggy Dog made it a chorus. Bran hurrooed again. They howled together, the last of their pack. I'll just finish this up. The noise brought a guard to his door. Hayhead, with the wen on his nose. He peered in and saw Bran howling at the window and said, "What's this, my prince?" It made Bran feel queer when they called him prince, though he was Robb's heir, and Robb was king in the north now. He turned his head to howl at the guard. No! No! Hayhead screwed up his face. Now you stop that. I'm not going to keep howling because Clea will hate it, but he howls again at Hayhead. The guardsman retreated, like, okay. When he came back, Maester Lewin was with him, all in grey, his chain tied about his neck. Bran, those beasts make sufficient noise without your help. He crossed the room and put his hand on the boy's brow. The hour grows late. You ought to be fast asleep. I'm talking to the wolves. Bran brushed the hand away. Shall I have Hayhead carry you to your bed? I could go to bed myself. Mikken had hammered a row of iron bars into the wall so Bran could pull himself around the room with his arms. It was slow and hard and it made his shoulders ache, but he hated being carried. Anyway, I don't have to sleep if I don't want to. All men must sleep, Bran, even princes. When I sleep, I turn into a wolf. Bran turned his face away and looked back out into the night. Do wolves dream? All creatures dream, I think, yet not as men do. Do dead men dream? Bran asked, thinking of his father. In the dark crypts below Winterfell, a stonemason was chiseling out his father's likeness in granite. Some say yes, some no, the maester answered. The dead themselves are silent on the matter. Do trees dream? Trees? No, they do, Bran said with a sudden certainty. They dream tree dreams. I love that. I dream of a tree sometimes, a weirwood, like the one in the Godswood. It calls to me. The wolf's dreams are better. I smell things, and sometimes I can taste the blood. Maester Lewin tugged at the chain where it chafed his neck. He's like very uncomfortable here. If you would only spend more time with the other children. I hate the other children, Bran said, meaning the Walders. I commanded you to send them away. Hang on a second. Lewin grew stern. The Freys are your lady mother's wards, sent here to be fostered at her express command. It is not for you to expel them, nor is it kind. If we turned them out, where would they go? Home. It's their fault you won't let me have Summer. The Frey boy did not ask to be attacked, the maester said. No more than I did. That was Shaggy Dog. Rickon's big black wolf was so wild he even frightened Bran at times. Summer never bit anyone. Summer ripped out a man's throat in this very chamber, or have you forgotten? The truth is, those sweet pups you and your brothers found in the snow have grown into dangerous beasts. The Frey boys are wise to be wary of them. Go ahead. I guess I should have let you do Bran. I forgot.
That's okay.
We're out of sync here, Tim. Tim. Yeah, go ahead and do Bran, and I'll do Lewin.
Oh, do you want to catch that super chat for it?
Yeah, Jamie Egg. Bran and Waymar both fit the Night's King archetype. Waymar definitely does. I'm not sure about Bran. As do Stannis and Euron, correct? Bran howls, but Waymar has a sick cloak. Waymar fathered Gilly's baby. What?
No, Craster fathered Gilly's baby. That's that whole thing.
But Craster's a Night's King figure. Yeah, it must have meant Craster. Bran shall father no children. Yeah, I don't really see Bran as a Night King archetype at all myself. But yeah, it's not. I just need to get it warmed up. But anyway, Tim. Actually, I guess I will brew some tea. Why don't you pick up the narrative, do Lewin too, and we're only trying to get to the part where he howls Lewin out of the room, which is just like one more page. Oh, but you can't read it if I... Okay, where are we?
We should put the Walders in the Godswood.
Okay, go for it.
They could play Lord of the Crossing all they want, and Summer could sleep with me again. If I'm the prince, why won't you heed me? I want to ride Dancer, but Alebelly wouldn't let me pass the gate. And rightly so. The Wolf's Wood is full of danger. Your last ride should have taught you that. Would you want some outlaw to take you captive and sell you to the Lannisters? Summer would save me, Bran insisted stubbornly. Princes should be allowed to sail the sea and hunt boar in the Wolf's Wood and joust with lances. Bran, child, why do you torment yourself so? One day you may do some of those things, but now you are only a boy of 8. I'd sooner be a wolf. Then I could live in the wood and sleep when I want it, and I could find Arya and Sansa. I'd smell where they go and go save them. All right. let me try something here. Let me see if I can get this thing to work.
Did you finish the page there?
Yeah. I'm trying to see if I got the PDF. I'm just trying to see if it has a search feature so I can find this for myself.
It's fine. Yeah, well, is it big enough for you to read easily on the screen? Because I can keep it up with the pace for the most part. Bud Raven says,
yeah, it's good.
I'm at work, so I can't catch the whole stream. Sending some support. Praise Garth. David and Tim making the weekend. Oh, yeah, you know how we do it. All the time. So, let's see here. I'd smell where they go and save them. Go ahead. Oh, you're looking for the... Okay, keep doing your thing. I'll finish it. And when Robb went into battle, I'd fight beside him like Grey Wind. I'd tear out the Kingslayer's throat with my teeth. Rip. And then the war would be over. And everyone would come back to Winterfell. If I was a wolf... He howled. Ooh. Now, real quick. There's some serious foreshadowing here. Bran is absolutely going to be involved with Arya's wolf pack. Okay. This is something I found when I did the King Bran Ancient Greenseer Kings, and I looked at all the foreshadowing of Arya running the wolf pack. And it's not even foreshadowing. It's something she's already doing and has been doing since the second book, which we'll talk about. But Bran is going to be involved too. So this whole bit where he's like, I'd go to battle with Robb and fight like Grey Wind. He is going to go into battle as a wolf, but with Arya, So I think that's pretty dope. Do you think it's possible that Dawn didn't fall from the stars, but rather from a dragon rider? No, it's definitely a meteorite. Say it's the last Valyrian steel-type sword of the Dawn Age. Yes, it is. Fell from the hand of a dragon rider. No, definitely a star sword. 100%, absolutely. And also, you won't find any... I can't think of any scenes where there's a dragon rider that drops a sword. It's not... There's no parallel for that. Which is the kind of thing you would see. Anyway, let's see here. And you can't... Daemon doesn't drop Dark Sister. He plants it exactly in the eye socket of Aemond One Eye. So no. Those are all meteorites. Yeah, don't even start with me. Maybe there's no meteorites, Dave. Wrong channel. Don't even. From Kelly, we know you don't think Dany will get a flipped switch and become a mad queen. Oh, come on, man. But we see her... No, Jesus Christ, dude. We see her take a darker, more ruthless state of mind. No, we do not. Towards the end of A Dance with Dragons. Wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I love you, Kelly, but you're wrong. She is... When the book ends, she is walking barefoot and bleeding back towards Meereen because her people need her. She is still the same person who's like, I've got to go serve my people, even though I'm half dead. Do not... Yeah, people, what is this trolling? I barely got any sleep last night. You guys are trolling the shit out of me. What is this? Love y'all, but thank you for the super chat. And I will get my voice in. It'll lock in, just don't worry. But let me show you what I was doing last night, real quick. I was up all night doing stuff. Just because I couldn't sleep. I was making new thumbnails. I've got a new style of thumbnail. Check this out, Tim. Look at that. What do you think?
Oh, nice.
That's good looking, right?
Yeah.
So let me show you a couple other ones I did. And by the way, the Grey King video that I was working on... It just keeps spawning. There's like going to be 6 Ironborn videos. Don't give me a hard time about it, okay? It's just... They're breeding. They're breeding all over the place. Yeah, the eclipse, I could not sleep at all. The eclipse got me for sure. So Gray King, Driftwood Kings, these are all coming to the channel near you. And I got some new Gray King art that I guess I will go ahead and debut. It is already up on Alex McClelland's website. So, Ribs of Naga. This is a new piece of artwork y'all have never seen. And I'll show you the full artwork. It's right here. So Alex McClelland, you can find him on DeviantArt. He has drawn 3 Gray King works for me. Well, partially for me, inspired by all of our talk. We were communicating a bit. But yeah, look at that. Very biblical. I love how, like, the guy carrying the one board almost looks like Jesus carrying the cross a little bit. And the whole scene has a very, like, Noah's Ark vibe. Love it. Love it. Great stuff. So that's Naga's ribs being built. Tim, I don't think I've shown these to you either.
No, this is all new to me.
Okay, so this is Gray King inside Naga's Hall. We'll get back to the wolf dreams in a minute. Just bear with me, okay? This is cool shit. So there's Gray King early in his life. Carved weirwood throne, a little bit of roots creeping up there. And then, of course, as time passes. 1,000 years and 7, Tim. It's long reign that he had. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, yeah.
That's nice.
Just feast your eyes as the Gray King feasted at his starfish table. Yeah, exactly. The chat loves it. I mean, that's... So I've got, as I go back to these covers here. So I've got Ribs of Naga. This one's going to be Weirwood Arc. So, yeah, good stuff coming to you. This is Gen Z's Driftwood Crown, the artwork. And then, of course, this is Justin Sweet's Gray King and Mermaid. So, that's what I was doing last night. Let me go get my tea and let's see. I think we're pretty much done with this one. If I was a wolf, he howled. Yeah, rip. The last part. Lewin raised his voice. A true prince would welcome. And then, oh, Bran just howls louder and louder. He howls Lewin right out of the room. The maester surrendered. As you will, child. With a look that was part grief and part disgust, he left the bedchamber. And then it says, Howling lost its savor once Bran was alone. It's like it was only fun when I was trolling people. So, there you go. Anyway, that's the first one. Bran is already having wolf dreams, as you can see. This is Jonathan Burton, this artwork. I'm sorry, this was Urtach Altanaz. I assume everybody knows that. This one is Otterly Lua. So it's Bran doing a little astral projection. And then this is Jonathan Burton. This is kind of representative of his dream. You can see there's like Catelyn with the knife, the hound, Weirwood face. So, pretty dope. All right, next quote. Let me pull it up, Tim. Did you have any luck pulling up a copy of the text or no?
No, for some reason, my I'm trying to use my interlibrary loan thing, and every time I go to I add the book to the basket. Then when I go to the basket, it says my basket is empty, and I'm like, well, where's it going? Why won't it let me? Because normally when I read these books, I'm using the ebook. I just use my library card, and I get the ebooks version from my library, and whatever reason, their site is just not working today.
Well, as long as you can read it on the screen. As long as it's big enough.
So I end all my videos by saying support your local library, but they ain't supporting me today.
Yeah, that's true. What's up with that? So, start right here where it says he went to sleep with his head full of knights.
Sure. He went to sleep with his head full of knights in gleaming armor, fighting with swords that shone like starfire. But when the dream came, he was in the godswood again. The smells from the kitchen and the great hall were so strong that it was almost as if he had never left the feast. He prowled beneath the trees, his brothers close behind him. The night was wildly alive, full of the howling of the man pack at their play. The sounds made him restless. He wanted to run, to hunt. He wanted to. The rattle of iron made his ears prick up. His brother heard it too. They raced through the undergrowth toward the sound. Bounding across the still water at the foot of the old white one, he caught the scent of a stranger, the man smell well mixed with leather and earth and iron. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's a Sunday that that it's not working. I don't know, chat. But yeah, same problem for Pittsburgh pub. Oh, what is there? Is their website jank too? You're muted.
Are you to the bottom of the page?
Yeah.
I snuck a bathroom break in there.
The intruders had pushed a few yards into the wood. It showed him the white of his teeth. His brother growled low in his throat, yet still they did not run. Here they come, the female said. Mira. Some part of him whispered some wisp of the sleeping boy lost in the wolf dream. Did you know they would be so big? They will be bigger, still before they are grown, the young male said, watching them with eyes large, green, and unafraid. The black one is full of fear and rage, but the gray is strong, stronger than he knows. Can you feel him, sister? No, she said, moving a hand to the hilt of the long brown knife she wore. Go careful, Jojen. He won't hurt me. This is not the day I die. Oh, Jojen, you probably do know the day you die, and that is why you are shivering in that cave. The male walked toward them, unafraid, and reached out for his muzzle, a touch of light as summer breeze. Yet at the brush of those fingers, the wood dissolved, and the very ground turned to smoke beneath his feet and swirled away, laughing. And then he was spinning and falling, falling, falling.
And there we go. Oh, perfect artwork too. So this is one half of this scene, right? This is Bran seeing Mira and Jojen through the eyes of Summer, and then we're going to flip over to essentially them talking about what this whole thing that just happened. So we'll read that, and then we'll do the analysis here. Sitting cross-legged under the weirwood, Jojen Reed regarded him solemnly. So this is a couple chapters later in the Godswood. It would be good if you left Winterfell, Bran. It would? Yes, and sooner rather than later. My brother has the green sight, said Mira. He dreams things that haven't happened, but sometimes they do. There is no sometimes, Mira. A look passed between them. Him sad, her defiant. So this is another reference to the whole idea that Jojen is going to die at the end of this journey, and Mira being, don't give in to, don't accept that. We can save you, blah, blah, blah. Jojen's like, nah. I'm going to turn into paste. I know it. Tell me what's going to happen, Bran said. I will, said Jojen, if you'll tell me about your dreams. The Godswood grew quiet. Bran could hear leaves rustling and Hodor's distant splashing from the hot pools. He thought of by the way, it's so just lovely to think about Hodor having tons of free time to just splash around in the hot pools and just having a great effing time of it, like I'm happy for Hodor. Anyway, he thought of the golden man and the three-eyed crow, remembered the crunch of bones between his jaws and the coppery taste of blood. So he's thinking about his dreams. These are different things he's been dreaming about. The golden man, the three-eyed crow, and then the crunch of bones between his jaws and the coppery taste of blood. I don't have dreams, Maester Lewin gives me sleeping draughts. Do they help? Sometimes. Mira said, all of Winterfell knows you wake at night shouting and sweating, Bran. The women talk of it at the well, the guards in their hall. Tell us what frightens you so much, said Jojen. I don't want to. Anyway, it's only dreams. Maester Lewin says dreams might mean anything or nothing. My brother dreams as other boys do, and those dreams might mean anything, Mira said. But the green dreams are different. Go ahead.
Green dreams.
Oh, did you pull up a copy?
No, I lost my place. So, Jojen's eyes were the color of moss, and sometimes when he looked at you, he seemed to be seeing something else, like now. I dreamt of a winged wolf bound to earth with gray stone chains, he said. It was a green dream, so I knew it was true. A crow was trying to peck through the chains, but the stone was too hard and his beak could only chip at them. Did the crow have 3 eyes? Jojen nodded. Summer raised his head from Bran's lap and gazed at the mudman with his dark golden eyes. What's with the slur, Bran? You just called him a mudman for some reason. When I was little, I almost died of gray water fever. That was when the crow came to me. He came to me after I fell, Bran blurted. I was asleep for a long time. He said I had to fly or die, and I woke up, only I was broken, and I couldn't fly after all. You can if you want to. Picking up her net, Mira shook out the last tangles and began arranging in loose folds.
I think it's cool that Mira, even though Mira's not the dreamer of this half, you could tell that Jojen and Mira are a more functional team than other teams that we see of various kinds. Like, she's not the dreamer, but she fully believes in what in Jojen's province. And Jojen has 100% faith in Mira's hunting ability and her ability to keep him safe and keep them alive. So they really are written to be like very complementary. They trust each other. They rely on each other's skills. And so even Mira understands the metaphors here. She's like, oh, you can fly if you want to, Bran. That's the kind of thing that you as a writer, you'd almost write Jojen saying that to Bran. Oh, you can fly if you want to. But even Mira understands like the metaphor here. So that's cool. I like that she's not in the dark about that. Are Greenseers and Wargs the same thing? So I actually think they are, Star W. It's basically the way it's explained to us is that, skin changers are rare and only one skin changer in 1,000 is a Greenseer. But I think when Bran is going into the tree, he's just skin changing the tree. That's all he's doing. Bloodraven tells him, go into the roots, put on the skin, just like you're slipping on Summer's skin. So really, I think a Greenseer is just a very powerful skin changer. It's probably not a different type of thing at all. Yeah, well, okay, so Warg is a skin changer who skin changes wolves. That's correct. I was talking, a lot of people say wargs when they actually just mean skin changers, period. So I think that Greenseers are just very powerful skin changers because like they tell you like, oh, wolves and ravens are the easiest because they're kind of like people. But birds are harder and like things like cats and other stuff, that's even harder. So the further you get, like the far winds that skin change. Well, actually, no, I guess a lot of seals and stuff are really smart. So that's probably why that works. Basically, the smarter the animal, the better it seems to work for a skin changer to share their consciousness. And that makes sense, right? You wouldn't want to share like a worm consciousness or something. Oh, wait, no. God Emperor from Dune is okay, never mind. I meant like a small worm. Speak for yourself. Okay, the point is, I do think that Greenseers are just very powerful skin changers. They could be a different type of thing. I think it's just a difference in degree because the technique is the same. And Greenseers can obviously skin change animals. They can just also skin change trees. So it's, left a little bit nebulous. Okay, where did you stop? A crow was trying to peck through the chains?
Yeah, you can if you want to. So we're at the very bottom of the page.
Oh, next page. Go ahead.
You are the winged wolf, Bran, said Jojen. I wasn't sure when we first came, but now I am. The crow sent us here to break your chains. Okay, so this is where that whole thing comes in, where Jojen says it was a green dream, so I know it was true. And it's like, okay, yes, Jojen, that might be, but it's also your interpretation of this green dream that's making you believe that it's Bran who's the winged wolf. When it seems like, nah, some of the other Stark children also have this whole thing going for them too. And arguably, and this is the problem with prophecy, is how you can read into it and force it to work for you. It's how Rhaegar ended up going down his line by first thinking, oh, I'm the prince that was promised, then thinking, oh no, it's not me, but it is my son, so therefore I'm still important. So Jojen's looking at this and thinking, okay, winged wolf, he's Stark, he's paralyzed, he's chained. But then it's like, no, but these things can also apply just as much to Rickon and to Jon. And you could even argue that Sansa could be the winged wolf if you really wanted to, with the winged, with all the little bird imagery. So
that's again, really interesting. I've never thought of that. I have a winged wolf artwork. Here's one. Mm-hmm. This is by Lauren Cannon. It really could apply to Sansa. I didn't even think about that.
And that's where this like debate comes in when because there's that theory out there that they say like where that Jojen and Mira were actually supposed to go find Rickon. That Rickon's the more powerful skin changer that they should have been looking for, with him and Shaggy Dog being the one to have green eyes, which is the color of Children of the Forest who have the gift, whereas Bran's wolf has the golden eyes that I guess we would say more common Children of the Forest have. But then on the other end, Jon has Ghost who has red eyes, which is the other one with the gift. And Jon's his skin changing is not something he's conscious of, but something he's capable of. And then you also have Arya, whose skin changing is so powerful that she's warging into Nymeria from across the narrow sea. So when Jojen says like, oh, it's you, Bran, you're the winged wolf, it's like, yeah, maybe, but you really might be trying to force a square peg into a round hole. And you're not really maybe you should take some time to look at all the other Stark kids and be like, maybe it's you. You're in the running, but I gotta meet your siblings. But no, he's just like, nope, it's you. I know it's you. My dreams never lie.
Well, that's I put a little more faith in Jojen's intuition than you. This is interesting heresy coming from your mouth, Tim. But I also think it could be the thing that like, even if it does apply to Bran specifically, it could also be meant to imply, to sort of imply thematically to all the Starks. And someone in the chat is even saying, oh, what about Jon as a dragon wolf? He could be a winged wolf. And Sansa has a lot of bird skin changer foreshadowing. So, yeah,
I've said that before. Like I used Bittersteel as my example because Bittersteel is Bracken and Targaryen, and his personal sigil is a winged horse. He made a Pegasus. Well, with Jon, if he were to learn about his dragon heritage, his Targaryen heritage, it's the same idea. Take a wolf, put some dragon wings on it, the way that Bittersteel put dragon wings on the Bracken horse. You get a winged wolf, and it would actually make a very good personal coat of arms, and with Bloodraven and Bittersteel, we've seen people do that. They do that all the time. Even Peter Baelish has a personal sigil distinct from his family sigil.
Well, I do think that Jojen is meant to find Bran, and I don't think he made a mistake, but it is relevant to talk about the fact that the other Starks are very strong skin changers. Rickon has the same dream of, Ned being dead in the crypts. And like you said, Arya is skin changing cats and skin changing wolves from across the sea. So that's pretty awesome. Now, real quick, Can you set a 60-second stopwatch real quick, Tim, on your phone or something?
Sure.
I need a 60-second timer. Kelly Johnson is asking if I take issue with Dany's fall from grace on the show due to the lack of credible build-up to her snapping or due to the fall from grace itself, which you feel is not supported at all. So let me know when you got that timer ready.
It's going.
Okay, so first of all, it's the latter. Dany turning crazy and killing innocent people is not foreshadowed and completely inconsistent with her character, especially in the books. That's the first thing. She will walk a darker path and be tempted by things or whatever. She's not going to fail the test and mass murder people. It doesn't fit her character. She's the most heroic character in the story. She embodies the heroic ideals of the story, which is self-sacrifice. Also, we know that Dave and Dan are the ones who wrote that ending specifically, the Jon having to kill Dany ending, and that only works if Dany turns mad, which is very clearly something that the showrunners heavy-handedly forced in the last couple episodes simply to justify her getting killed by Jon, when only 2 episodes before she had put all of her armies on the line to save as many people as possible in the north. So it's not because they didn't set it up properly, it's because it doesn't fit the character at all. Please watch Jon and Dany are the heroes of Ice and Fire. That's the short version, and the long version is Who is the Real Daenerys. You were supposed to interrupt. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Time. Look at that. Done. Kelly Johnson asks, it appears from Melisandre's words that people in Ice and Fire are vulnerable in their dream state. It is hard to imagine, with all the magic going on, that it isn't possible for a powerful magic user to ward their dreams against intrusion. Yeah, I think so. We would see, we've seen magical wards in place before. And so, yeah, the idea of magicians warding their dreams makes sense to me. I do think people can, we know that glass candles enable magicians to interfere with dreams, implant dreams. Euron seems to be doing it with Shade of the Evening to Aeron in that chapter, definitely. And we know Bloodraven is in Bran's dreams through the Weirwood Net. So yes, obviously, when you're dreaming, you're open to psychic suggestion. And I think that is pretty consistent with how most people believe that psychic activity works in the real world, if you believe in that.
Yeah. I just wanted to inject because I think not only is it possible, I think it would be a necessity. Going back to all the Ironborn stuff that we've recently been doing, I've talked about how Cthulhu is able to manipulate cult members. It's through dream manipulation. So that is definitely something George is picking up on. And given that all this Lovecraftian stuff comes in through dream manipulation as a primary way of doing it, it would seem to me that more magical know-hows, people like Bloodraven and Quaithe, probably do know that dream protection would be a necessity to keep others from being able to influence that. It's something Bran does not know about yet. Probably something Bloodraven is teaching him. In like, we don't get many Bran chapters. We just have to assume that Bran's having a magical montage off page, and that when we get wins, he'll know things that we don't have time to see. But that's probably going to be one of them, magical warding.
Since we were talking about Bloodraven potentially being connected to Danelle Lawston and definitely Shara Seastar, both sorceresses, kind of makes you picture like Bloodraven on a couch doing astral projection with a glass candle, and like Shara Seastar warding and protecting him while he does it or something like that. Like maybe there's something to the whole team of 2 sorcerers kind of thing. Yeah. For that reason. So, okay. The Crow sent us here to break your chains. Carry on, Tim.
Yes. And I did find a PDF that is working for me. So, is the Crow at Greywater? No, the Crow is in the north. At the Wall? Bran had always wanted to see the Wall. His bastard brother Jon was there now, a man of the Night's Watch. Beyond the Wall, Mira Reed hung the net from her belt. When Jojen told our Lord Father that he dreamt he'd sent us to Winterfell. How would I break the chains, Jojen? Bran asked. Open your eye. They are open. Can't you see? 2 are open, Jojen pointed. 1, 2. I only have 2. You have 3. The crow gave you the third, but you will not open it. He had a slow, soft way of speaking. With 2 eyes, you see my face. With 3, you could see my heart. With 2, you can see that oak tree there. With 3, you could see the acorn the oak grew from and the stump that it will one day become. With 2, you see no farther than your walls. With 3, you would gaze south to the summer sea and north beyond the wall. Summer got to his feet. I don't need to see so far. Bran made a nervous smile. I'm tired of talking about crows. Let's talk about wolves or lizard lions. Have you ever hunted one, Mira? We don't have them here. That's another thing. Like, I'm uncomfortable with the things we're talking about, so I'm going to change the subject.
Let's talk about wolves or lizard lions. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Little boys in America, we talk about, dump trucks and fire engines and tanks and things, but you don't, lizard lions and wolves. Yeah, sure. Or knights. I really like the paragraph before where Jojen is speaking mystically here. Like, this is so psychedelic, 60s metaphysical. Like, with 3, you could see my heart. Like, that's George that's not Ice and Fire anymore. That's George telling you what this is actually all about. Like deep intuition, actual vulnerability and intimacy. Like it's the reason why I'm stopping to emphasize this is because a lot of people that are into psychedelic, mystical, woo-woo stuff completely forget the heart element of it. And they think about it as this fun, interesting thing or a cool thing or even a trendy thing or an outfit they can put on, and it's the real nature of psychedelic journeys is always about getting into yourself, okay? Tearing away the bullshit illusions that you have, seeing real truth. And that's why a lot of times you can see old habits get broken. And that's why we've seen psychedelics and MDMA used for therapy, particularly, and this is like government research stuff. They've used it many times. They've tried doing, for prisoners of war. Les Claypool wrote a song, The Army's on Ecstasy, because like literally MDMA can be used to help people rehabilitate from trauma. And really when you think about, to bring this back to Ice and Fire, personal transformation is a theme that we're always talking about. Like when we're talking about character growth and all this stuff, there's a lot of mystical transformation and growth that goes on in the story, but it's always paralleling the heart in conflict, which means the character itself. So when he says, with 3, you could see my heart, like that's George kind of showing you like, yeah, the rest of it is this mystical stuff. Oh, you could see to the wall. You could see the oak and the acorn and the stump, you could see all of time. You can see distance. But the most important thing, you could see my heart. Like you could see right into the hearts of people. Like that's kind of, again, George stepping out of Ice and Fire and just telling you what the core of all this crap is really about. It's about becoming a better person. And that ties back into the heroism of Dany and other characters. It's like the point of becoming a better person and transforming is so that you can change the world. You change yourself first, then you change the world. And that's kind of like people like Dany and Jon, and ultimately Bran. The thing about Bran is that he's so young. So he can't understand things on quite the same adult level as Dany and Jon. But there will come a time when his innocence will end, and Bran will have to make moral decisions. And it might center around Hodor. It could be that the Hodoring event is what, awakens Bran to the sort of moral responsibility of what he's doing and has done to Hodor. So that will maybe end his childhood in a sense. What do you think about that? Because Bran has this sort of, like he's doing all these bad things that skin changers aren't supposed to do, but it's like, oh, he's a kid, he doesn't know any better. Now, the
Yeah.
thing that he definitely does know better is taking over Hodor. He knows Hodor doesn't like it. So I think, yeah, when Hodor gets Hodored, I think that's a moment of potential growth for Bran, when he could face a little bit of accountability and start to grow up a little bit, because he's going to have to wield this incredible power. Like, that's not going to be done amorally. Like, Bran will have to make moral decisions with this incredible magic that he has, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I commented on the thing too is that Bloodraven, for all he's doing, is he's aware that Bran is doing that, and yet he does not explain the rules to him. Not the way that Varamir Sixskins had the rules told to him by a mentor. He just actively chose to break all of them. Bran has not been told the rules, and Bloodraven is not telling him. And it could be, and that comes with Bloodraven being that, well, you know, the ends justify the means. Want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. Like that's just the type of mindset he's always had, going back all the way, going all the way back throughout his history. So that might be another reason why he's not telling Bran these rules, why he's aware that Bran is warging Hodor and not being like, hey, you're not, just so you know, you're not supposed to do that. Like, he obviously doesn't like it, but you really, really shouldn't do that. And I think, like, that's why it's going to take something like the Hodoring, where Bran breaks his mind, for him to really catch on, like, oh, this was wrong all the time. Because if nobody's going to tell him, and if his mentor is actively not telling him, keeping things from him, because he's more focused on the mission and not so much the moral quandaries involved in all of that, then it is going to take an event like that for Bran to realize, like, oh, that's your with great power comes great responsibility moment.
Yeah, and now that I think about it here, it really does make sense as a good setup, as a moral thing that Bran will be able to understand as an 11 or 12-year-old or whatever he is. Like, it's been set up. He understands Hodor's hiding, that he doesn't like it, and he'll be able to understand, oh, Hodor is like that because he had to do something for me. So, like, yeah, that should definitely sort of be an end of childhood moment for Bran, I think. And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So Jamie Egg, with a very generous super chat, thank you, Jamie, is wanting to talk about Illyrio and worm symbolism. And this is a chapter that we need to do a reread. It's the one where Arya's beneath King's Landing, and she overhears Illyrio and Varys talking. There's incredible symbolism. They're coming up a spiral staircase out of a well. Mm-hmm. So that evokes the Night Fort and all kinds of stuff. There's star imagery happening. The torch is like a smoky star, and they're talking about all kinds of stuff. There's dragon skulls in the darkness. I mean, it's a wild chapter. So yeah, Jamie, we should probably reread that whole chapter. Now, Illyrio definitely has worm symbolism, much like Aegon the Unworthy and Maegor, who are both described as being wormy and full of worms and corrupt and stuff. It's like a corrupt Greenseer symbolism, because the Weirwood roots are like grave worms, and the Greenseers are essentially consumed by them. And then Jamie's also bringing up the serpents under Yggdrasil, such as Nidhogger, but there's a bunch more too. And and then he's also comparing Illyrio to the god Emperor, again, Dune, a worm god, and Illyrio's carried around in the palanquin, which could be part of that symbolism. So Illyrio, we probably should do an Illyrio study. There's only like 3 Tyrion chapters where he's in, but he has incredible symbolism. He's got all the gemstone emperors on his rings. I haven't thought about Illyrio in a minute. I think he's basically like a corrupt sun god. He's big and yellow, but he's corrupt. And that's an archetype that George is giving us a lot of different angles on because of the long night. It is a corruption of the sun in mythical terms. So,
well, if you saw that big stupid smile I had, it's because I think about Illyrio a lot, and that is because I'm such a humongous Blackfire fan, and any chapter where there's Blackfire stuff afoot, is one where my spidey senses really start to go off. So any chapter that has Illyrio, Fagon, John Con running around, like those are the ones where like I'm really picking up on that.
The Pound King hides his worm tail, Jamie says. Oh, he also said that Illyrio burrows under the narrow sea to get to King's Landing and back.
Yeah, he does cross it pretty quickly when you think about it.
It's worm tunnels. That's how. Shy Lude. I'll have to share that with Quinn. Oh, Minty, I'm glad you've made friends with Bebe. You guys will get along great, or already are getting along great, so that's great. Shout out to Minty Maelstrom, of course, as always. And devoted to Mariah. Good to see you in the chat. Martin Krog with a super chat earlier as well. All right, so let's keep moving here. I got all touchy-feely there with the third eye and the heart. Okay, so Summer got to his feet. I don't need to... Okay. Mira plucked her... Okay, so Bran, have you ever hunted one Mira? We don't have them here. Mira plucked her frog spear out of the bushes. They live in the water, in slow streams and deep swamps, her brother interrupted. Did you dream of a lizard lion? No, said Bran. I told you. I don't want... Did you dream of a wolf? He was making Bran angry. I don't have to tell you my dreams. I'm the prince. I'm the Stark in Winterfell. Was it Summer? You be quiet. The night of the harvest feast. You dreamed you were in Summer in the Godswood, didn't you? Stop it, Bran shouted. Summer slid toward the weirwood, his white teeth bared. Jojen Reed took no mind. When I touched Summer, I felt you in him, just as you are in him now. You couldn't have. I was in bed. I was sleeping. You were in the Godswood, all in gray. It was only a bad dream. Jojen stood. I felt you. I felt you fall. Is that what scares you, the falling? The falling, Bran thought. And the golden man, the queen's brother, he scares me too, but mostly the falling. He did not say it, though. How could he? He had not been able to tell Sir Roderick or Maester Luwin, and he could not tell the Reeds either. If he didn't think about it, maybe he would forget. He had never wanted to remember. It might not even be a true remembering. Do you fall every night, Bran? Jojen asked quietly. Pushing, Jojen just pushing. A low rumbling growl rose from Summer's throat, and there was no play in it. He stalked forward, all teeth and hot eyes. Mira stepped between the wolf and her brother, spear in hand. Keep him back, Bran. Would you pick this up?
Jojen is making him angry. Mira shook out her net. It's your anger, Bran, her brother said. Your fear. It isn't. I'm not a wolf. Yet he'd howl with them in the night and tasted blood in his wolf dreams. Part of you is Summer, and part of Summer is you. You know that, Bran. Summer rushed forward, but Mira blocked him, jabbing with the three-pronged spear. The wolf twisted aside, circling, stalking. Mira turned to face him. Call him back, Bran. Summer, Bran shouted. To me, Summer. He slapped an open palm down on the meat of his thigh. His hand tingled, though his dead leg felt nothing. The direwolf lunged again, and again Mira's spear darted out. Summer dodged, circled back. The bushes rustled, and a lean black shape came padding from behind the weirwood, teeth bared. The scent was strong. His brother had smelled his rage. Bran felt hairs rise on the back of his neck. Mira stood beside her brother, with wolves to either side. Bran, call them off. I can't. Jojen, up the tree. There's no need. Today is not the day I die. Are you trying to put that on a t-shirt, Jojen? Like that's his catchphrase. Do it, she screamed, and her brother scrambled up the trunk of the weirwood, using the face for his handholds. The direwolves closed. Mira abandoned spear and net, jumped up, and grabbed the branch above her head. Shaggy's jaw snapped shut behind her ankle as she swung up and over the limb. Summer sat back on his haunches and howled, while Shaggy Dog worried the net, shaking it in his teeth. Only then did Bran remember they were not alone. He cupped hands around his mouth. Hodor, he shouted. Hodor! Hodor! He was badly frightened and somehow ashamed. They won't hurt Hodor. he assured his treed friends. His treed friends. His tree friends.
No, the Jojen pace foreshadowing is off the charts in this scene, but go ahead and just finish it out real quick, and then I'll get to that.
Okay. A few moments passed before they heard a tuneless humming. Hodor arrived half-dressed and mud-spattered from his visits to the hot pools, but Bran had never been so glad to see him. "Hodor, help me! Chase off the wolves! Chase them off!" Hodor went to it gleefully, waving his arms and stamping his huge feet, shouting, "Hodor! Hodor!" running first at one wolf, then the other. Shaggy Dog was the first to flee, slinking back into the foliage with a final snarl. When Summer had enough, he came back to Bran and lay down beside him. No sooner did Mira touch ground than she snatched up her spear and net again. Jojen never took his eyes off Summer. "We will talk again," he promised Bran. "It was the wolves. It wasn't me." He did not understand why they'd gotten so wild. Maybe Maester Luwin was right to lock them in the Godswood. "Hodor," he said, "bring me to Maester Luwin."
Okay, so that'll do. So, great scene here. First of all, the Hodoring is just awesome. Just like, "Hodor, chase off the wolves." Then he's just like stamping his food, "Hodor, Hodor," and the wolves are just like, I don't know what to do about that. It's so funny how so you have to stop and remember how terrifying wolves are. They're not just big dogs. If you've ever seen one in person, or even like a half wolf husky in person, like, you just don't know until you know. These things are terrifying. One wolf is terrifying. Two wolves is like, hopefully as you're reading the scene, you could feel the level of panic increase. It's like one wolf, Mira's got a big trident and she can sort of keep them away. But as soon as there's two, it's like, you're out of luck. I mean, we saw this scene earlier in Game of Thrones. These wolves can just dismember people, rip out throats, tear ankles, knee tendons, one bite. They're quicker than people. They're so strong, like, just terrifying. And dire wolves are even bigger than regular wolves. So you just have to remember and feel the edginess of this scene. Even though they're Bran's wolves, they're not puppies, and Bran obviously doesn't control them. Now, Tim, have you seen the movie Forbidden Planet? Robbie the Robot.
I have not.
You have not? Okay. Well, a lot of people have. You should watch it. It's a classic. It's a very old movie, but it's a classic sci-fi. You know Robbie the Robot, right? You've seen that, what he looks like. Does that sound familiar?
I'm sure there's like a Simpsons reference or something to what you're talking about that I can pick up.
Basically, spacemen go to a planet that's like a lost colony planet. Humans had been there before. We lost a mission. Not sure what happened. There's a survivor there. So this mission of ordinary astronauts, let's just say from the future, they land on a planet and they find one dude and his very hot daughter living in this compound on this kind of harsh planet. And what it boils down to is that this dude, who's brilliant and is engineering technology and stuff, he's created this machine that channels psychic power into stuff. And there's a monster that killed all the spacemen from the last mission on this planet and has killed everyone except for this dude and his daughter. And they can't figure out where the monster is coming from. Well, the monster is generated by the mind of the professor. And when he's hooked up to the machine, his id, meaning his sort of unconscious desires, manifest as this monster. And he doesn't want the spacemen on the planet because he likes the way things are, and he's got reasons. He doesn't want to be bothered. He's left alone. And so his id is creating a monster that's trying to kill the spacemen. In the climactic scene, the remaining few spacemen and astronauts or whatever, and this guy and his daughter, they're inside his inner lab chamber, which has unbreakable steel doors or whatever. And the monster is breaking down the doors the doors are heating up white hot. And he's like, this shouldn't be possible. And the spaceman has figured out that the monster is coming from this guy's id through the machine. So there's this phrase, monsters from the id. And basically, his daughter is in love with the spaceman. And he doesn't want his daughter to leave, whatever. And so his id is creating this monster to try to come and kill them. But even when the spaceman is he's convinced the scientist, he's like, it's coming from your mind. It's from your mind. Only you can stop it. And he's in denial. He's like, no, it's not me. But then he realizes it must be. And he's trying to stop it and he can't because it's his id and you don't control your id. Okay. It comes from like your very deep self. I mean, you can change it over time. That's a different thing. But like, that's what this scene is George making an ode to Forbidden Planet, 100%. So when Bran is sitting there and the wolves are manifesting his deep anger, his id, his uncomfort, like, don't push me. I don't want to talk about this. It's trauma that he's defending with defense mechanisms. And so his wolf is getting angry. And Bran's like, no, it's not me. I can't control it. And they're like, no, it's your anger and fear, Bran. This is exactly the Forbidden Planet climax scene that this occurred to me yesterday. So it's very cool. If you've seen the movie, it's very, very obvious that that's what's going on here. It's the exact same thing. So the wolf is Bran's id manifesting. And he doesn't have control over it yet because it's a new bond that is very, like Jojen is saying, your third eye, it's like fluttering open, but it's not open yet, so. Very cool. So this is some of the inspiration for how the wolf dream and the psychic connection works is inspired by Forbidden Planet and this machine that manifests your inner desires and will. And so George is kind of saying, like, when you use magic, whether it's any kind of magic, the vessel matters because your deep desires will come out. And you see something like Varamir Sixskins completely given to his base desires. And so he uses his magic in a totally predatory way. And you see Dany wrestling with who she is and how she should use power. And we all realize how important that is because of the power that she wields. And so it's the same thing here with Bran and all the Greenseers. Your thoughts, Tim?
No, because I don't know the movie to pick up on that aspect of it. But going back to Varamir, the idea of when someone gets access to magic, but how their personality will play into that, because there are some people you don't want to have that kind of power. Varamir is one of those. Euron is by far one of those. You don't want to give this guy the keys to the car because he's going to do some damage. And with Bran, it is like, yeah, but he's a kid and his understanding of all of this stuff is very much in kid terms. So the idea of id and ego and superego, those are all just words to him. He's not going to have any idea what you're talking about. So he's not consciously aware of like what Mira had just said. It's like when she says it's your anger, like they're picking up off of your emotions, Bran. Like you can call them back, but you need to calm down because they're responding to you right now and the vibes that you're giving off. You're muted.
And so like what I was saying, like I said, oh, you can't change your id, or you can over time. So like Bran in this moment can't just get rid of his fear. But over time, as he comes to terms with his power and what he's doing and who he's becoming, he can let go of his fear and learn how to be more in control of this bond. And we see that happening as well. Like, when he's about to eat the weirwood paste, he's thinking about the stuff. Am I going to turn into a tree? Who would marry me? Who would marry a tree? I guess I can marry a... Like, he's thinking about his life choices. I wanted to be a knight, but this is pretty cool. So, yeah. It's definitely George showing, fear. I mean, there's a lot of commentary about fear with Ned. The only time you can be brave is when you are afraid. So we know that George is thinking about confronting fear as a major avenue of growth for many of the characters. And this is Shark's Den. This artwork here. This is Bran's Coma Dream. And let's see here. I've also got... This is a cool one. You'll like this. This is Sheb's art. And it is borrowing the symbolism of Euron, but applying it to Bran. So the black crown is the King of Winter crown. The third eye is red, like Bloodraven's eye, but also like Euron's sigil. And you got two ravens holding up the crown. So it just shows you how slippery the symbolism is in this story. You know, all of Euron's symbolism applies very well to like a Stark Greenseer. And Kelly Johnson asked if those failed Greenseers that Bran sees on the ground impaled on the ice spires or whatever, are those people that Bloodraven was trying to contact, like Euron? I don't know. I guess you could read it that way. I read that mostly as like the original Green Men who were turned into others. But Euron sort of parallels that path. So, yes, in essence. Cool. Let's go to our next one. We are going way too slow and need to go faster if we're ever going to finish this. Good Lord. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. So this is an actual warging experience that we're about to do. This is when the Ironborn invade Winterfell. The sound was the faintest of clinks, is what you can search, Tim.
Sound with... This is still a Clash of Kings, right?
Yep. The sound was the faintest of clinks, a scraping of steel over stone. He lifted his head from his paws, listening, sniffing at the night. The evening's rain had woken 100 sleeping smells and made them ripe and strong again. Grass and thorns, blackberries broken on the ground, mud, worms, rotting leaves, a rat creeping through the bush. He caught the shaggy black scent of his brother's coat and the sharp coppery tang of blood from the squirrel he'd killed. Other squirrels moved through the branches above, smelling of wet fur and fear, their little claws scratching at the bark. The noise had sounded something like that. So this is our first introduction to like wolf consciousness, right? And so it's very entertaining. This is kind of the draw of doing this stream. It's like these chapters are really fun to read when we're in the wolf. You know, George is giving us the enhanced wolf senses. They can hear everything. They can identify all these individual smells and can understand what's going on. So it's really cool. I mean, this is just basic biology here, but George is showing you how animals gather information differently than people, right? Like they can take a smell and understand what's happening. Oh, dead squirrel, blood, my wolf brother. Okay, he's hunted a squirrel. The other squirrels are afraid, but they might be on edge because of something else. I heard this weird sound. It was the faintest of click. It sounded like steel over stone, a little bit like the squirrel's claws, but not exactly. And then he heard it again, clink and scrape. It brought him to his feet. His ears pricked and his tail rose. And you can picture your dog, like the sudden change in body language when a dog hears a sound. Any animal, really, hears a sound they don't understand. They're like, because for an animal and for people, your whole sense of danger is based on picking out things that don't belong. So all these other sounds belong. But in amongst that symphony is this one sound that doesn't belong. And a sound that doesn't belong means danger. And indeed, that is exactly what is going on. You want to pick it up, Tim?
Where did we leave off?
Clink and scrape. It brought him to his feet. His ears pricked and his tail rose. He howled a deep, shivery cry.
I'm sorry, like nothing is working on my end, apparently.
If you just search clink and scrape, that should come up.
Yeah, why aren't you working? Why is nothing on my end working? I'm sorry, Chad. I'm having like technical difficulties on my end. Search results will appear. Come on. Yeah, I'm gonna have to just read from yours, I guess, again for the time being, so I can get this to work. Um, and clink and scrape. It brought him to his feet. His ears pricked and his tail rose. He howled a long, deep, shivery cry. Next page. A howl to wake the sleepers, but the piles of man rock were dark and dead. A still wet night, a night to drive men into their holes. The rain had stopped.
Hold on. I'm sorry. The chat is enjoying this. I was trying to talk to you that whole time that you were struggling and you couldn't hear me. I'm so sorry. I was muted. I was saying stuff to you. I'm really sorry. You probably thought I was just like letting you hang there. I can't, man, Dave's not even covering the dead space. I can't find the text. What is this? I'm so sorry, man. Devoted to Mariah, that is correct. Yeah, okay. So is it working for you now, or you're reading off my screen?
I was reading off your screen. I'm trying to get this Libby app to work on my end, but it's just like
I can read for a couple minutes if you want to keep trying to make it work.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Not quite the usual smooth production that we have. Apologies. And he heard it again, clink and scrape. It brought him to his feet. His ears pricked and his tail rose. He howled, a long, deep, shivery cry, a howl to wake the sleepers. But the piles of man rock were dark and dead. Wow. Okay, so waking the sleepers obviously is a phrase that makes us think of the Night's Watch vows. They are the horn that wakes the sleepers. So here we have a wolf howl to wake the sleepers, and a wolf howl obviously very similar to a horn blown by a Night's Watchman who could be a Stark, obviously. And then it says, but the piles of man rock were dark and dead. Those sound like Kings of Winter to me, Tim. Piles of man rock that are dark and dead. That's the Kings of Winter, carved from dark gray stone. Piles of man rock, literally rock shaped like man, and they're dark and dead. So, again, just more language about the Kings of Winter waking in some sense. Some people like the theory that the statues will come to life physically. Of course, I don't think it's that literal. I think we're talking about the Night's Watch here, because the Kings of Winter and the Night's Watch are basically the same character, just as Jon is both. But there we go. No question. Just wanted to say I'm a huge fan. Really enjoy watching Dave and Tim. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you. The piles of man rock Stark. Yeah, that's in the other Wolf Dream where Winterfell is burning, which I think I have, but I must have it out of order. I do. Sorry. Yeah, a little bit out of order. Whatever. So let's see here. Oh no, that hasn't happened yet. I'm wrong. It is in order. Okay. A still wet night, a night to drive men into their holes. The rain had stopped, but the men still hid from the damp, huddled by their fires in the caves of piled stone. Did you find your place yet? Did you get it working?
Nah, I'm trying. I'm just gonna have to keep reading off your page if I.
Yeah, if you can't get it working by now, then probably just let it go.
Yeah. His brother came sliding through the trees, moving almost as quiet as another brother he remembered dimly from long ago, a white one with the eyes of blood. This brother's eyes were pools of shadow, but the fur on the back of his neck was bristling. He had heard the sounds as well, and known they meant danger. This time, the clink and scrape were followed by a slithering and the soft, swift patter of skin feet on stone. The wind brought the faintest whiff of a man smell he did not know. Stranger, danger, stranger, danger, stranger, danger, death. Yeah, don't go talking to people you don't know, wolves. He ran toward the sound, his brothers racing beside him. The stone dens rose before them, walls slick and wet. He bared his teeth, but the man rock took no notice. A gate loomed up, a black iron snake coiled tight about bar and post. When he crashed against it, the gate shuddered, and the snake clanked and slithered and held. Through the bars, he looked down the long stone burrow.
Hey, wait a second. This whole thing seems like King of Winter stuff. He's like the spirit trying to break out of the King of Winter statue. There's a black iron snake that's barring his way. There are black iron swords sitting on the laps of the Kings of Winter that are supposed to keep the spirits in their place. So he's literally the wolf spirit trapped inside the castle is a metaphor for the spirits that are inside the King of Winter statues. And this scene here, where Summer is trying to break through this black iron snake that's barring his way, that's the spirits being kept inside their damn statues. Wow, that's cool. That's awesome because, Tim, we wanted to circle back to the King of Winter stuff because we were trying to work on what's going on there. So, yeah, there are wolf spirits in there for sure. That's really cool. What do you think about that?
So his wolf spirit's down in the... Yeah, I'm not sure because that's the thing. Like,
because
if
just
the start.
Good, hold on. So just earlier, a minute ago, we had the sentence: "He howled a long, deep, shivery cry, a howl to wake the sleepers, but the piles of man rock were dark and dead." So he's just introduced the idea of sleepers inside piles of man rock that are dark and dead, which would be the Kings of Winter, and there's a howl trying to wake them up. So the very next paragraph, he bared his teeth. The man rock took no notice. A gate loomed up. A black iron snake coiled tight around bar and post. When he crashed against it, the gate shuddered and the snake clanked and slithered and held. So again, those black iron swords, which are like snakes, are meant to keep the spirits inside the statue, which is the dead pile of man rock. So Summer, a wolf, is inside the castle itself, which is a pile of man rock, trying to break out of the gate, but there's a black iron snake barring its way. Tim, are you with me?
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm with you on this one. I mean, I know we are very off sync today, and I think it's because of me struggling to get anything to work on my end.
Are you following the train of thought, though?
No.
Look,
actually,
you don't even understand what I'm saying. I know the chat. Stop thinking about your broken app and listen to what I'm saying, okay?
Okay.
Picture the King of Winter statue. It's a dead pile of man rock.
Okay.
Okay. Inside the statue are spirits of dead Starks, who are like wolves. The Kings of Winter have swords across their laps. They're black iron swords, and it's said that they are put on the laps to keep the restless spirits in their place. And when Barbary goes down and they see a couple of swords missing, Theon wonders if that means the spirits are now roaming and haunting. You with me now? You with me so far?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So inside these dead piles of man rock are wolf spirits, and they're kept inside, in part, by these black iron swords. Then we jump to the scene here where we have wolves trapped inside piles of dead man rock and barring the way. We can't break out because there's a black iron snake barring the way, which is like the sword that keeps the spirit in the statue. So the wolves that are trying to break out of the castle here are like the spirits inside of the statues. Then keep reading. Through the bars, he could look down the long stone burrow that ran between the walls to the stony field beyond. Well, think barrow. This is more death symbolism. Looking through the gate, seeing the burrow or the barrow, but there was no way through. He could force his muzzle between the bars, but no more. Many a time his brother had tried to crack the black bones of the gate between his teeth, but they would not break. They had tried to dig under, but there were great flat stones beneath, half covered by earth and blown leaves. Snarling, he paced back and forth in front of the gate, then threw himself at it once more. It moved a little and slammed him back. Locked, something whispered. Chained. The voice he did not hear. The scent without a smell. So that's like Bran's consciousness being present inside the wolf, basically. The scent without a smell. That's a pretty interesting way to describe it. The voice he did not hear. The scent without a smell. George loves that silent shout, Steph. It's very esoteric. The other ways were closed as well. Where doors opened in the walls of Man Rock, the wood was thick and strong. There was no way out. Right, so the other thing keeping the spirits inside the statues is the wood, meaning weirwood magic, bonds of some kind. Are you with me at all, Tim, or are you just...
No, I'm following you on this.
You don't have to agree. As long as you understand the train of thought I'm trying to put together, that's fine. So let's see. There is, the whisper came, and it seemed as if he could see the shadow of a great tree covered in needles, slanting up out of the black earth to 10 times the height of a man. Yet when he looked about, it was not there. The other side of the godswood, the sentinel. Hurry. So, again, how are the King of Winter spirits ultimately going to get out, come back to life? By climbing a tree, Tim. Through the gloom of night came a muffled shout, cut short. So somebody just got killed by an Ironborn climbing the wall. So it's what just happened. Swiftly, he whirled and bounded back into the trees, wet leaves rustling beneath his paws, branches whipping at him as he rushed past. He could hear his brother following close. They plunged under the heart tree. Under the heart tree, Tim. And around the cold pool, through the blackberry bushes, under a tangle of oaks and ash and hawthorn scrub, to the far side of the wood. And there it was, the shadow he'd glimpsed without seeing, the slanting tree pointing at the rooftops. Sentinel, came the thought. He remembered how it was to climb it then. The needles everywhere, scratching at his bare face, falling down the back of his neck, the sticky sap on his hands, the sharp, piney smell of it. So we can see, like, Bran's consciousness surfaces a little more as the wolf comes up to the tree and looks at the tree, and then the boy's memory of climbing the tree begins to take hold. So the writing is very good here as far as George showing you the two consciousnesses, you know, one being the dominant one, but the other one sort of whispering in, right? Let's see, where are we? It was an easy tree for a boy to climb, leaning as it did, crooked, the branches so close together they almost made a ladder, slanting right up to the roof. So it's a tree ladder, Tim. Mm-hmm. You want to go ahead and pick it up here with growling.
Growling, he sniffed around the base of the tree, lifted a leg, and marked it with a stream of urine. A low branch brushed his face, and he snapped at it, twisting and pulling until the wood cracked and tore. His mouth was full of needles and the bitter taste of the sap. He shook his head and snarled. His brother sat back on his haunches and lifted his voice in an ululating howl, his song black with mourning. This way was no way. They were not squirrels, nor the cubs of men. They could not wriggle up the trunks of trees, clinging with soft pink paws and clumsy feet. They were runners, hunters, prowlers. Off across the night, beyond the stone that hemmed them close, the dogs woke and began to bark. One, and then another, and then all of them. A great clamor. They smelled it too, the scent of foes and fear.
It's cool that the wolves have better smell than the dogs, you see.
Mm-hmm. Desperate fury filled him. Hot as hunger, he sprang away from the wall, lopped off beneath the trees, the shadows of branch and leaf dappling his gray fur. And then he turned and raced back in a rush. His feet flew, kicking up wet leaves and pine needles, and for a little time he was a hunter, and an antlered stag was fleeing before him, and he could see it, smell it. And he ran full out in pursuit. The smell of fear made his heart thunder, and slaver ran up from his jaw, and he reached the falling tree in a stride and threw himself up the trunk, claws scrabbling at the bark for purchase. Upward he bounded, up 2 bounds, 3, hardly slowing, until he was among the lower limbs. Branches tangled his feet and whipped at his eyes. Gray-green needles scattered as he shouldered through them, snapping. He had to slow. Something snagged at his foot, and he wrenched it free, snarling. The trunk narrowed under him, the slope steeper, almost straight up and wet. The bark tore like skin when he tried to claw at it. He was a third of the way up, halfway, more. The roof was almost within reach. And then he put down a foot and felt it slip off the curve of wet wood, and suddenly he was sliding, stumbling. He yowled in fear and fury, falling, and twisted around while the ground rushed up to break him. And then Bran was back abed in his lonely tower room, tangled in his blankets, his breath coming hard. "Summer!" he cried aloud. "Summer!" His shoulder seemed to ache, as if he had fallen on it, but he knew it was only the ghost of what the wolf was feeling. Jojen told it true. "I'm a beastling." Outside, he could hear the faint barking of dogs. The sea has come. It's flowing over the walls, just as Jojen saw. Bran grabbed the bar overhead and pulled himself up, shouting for help. No one came, and after a moment he remembered that no one would. They had taken the guard off his door. Sir Roderick had needed every man of fighting age he could lay his hands on, so Winterfell had been left with only a token garrison.
All right, so this is Bran's first actual warg experience, full on, and that's why he comes back from it. He's like, "Oh, I am a beastling." Like, he can't deny it anymore. You know, like he's just had a full wolf experience. He understands what just happened. The wolf fell, so I hurt. It's all clicked in. So no going back here for Bran. And again, the metaphor is, you know, somebody pointed out the tree has skin like a person, you know, and he's just the whole thing about it. It's a falling tree on the other side of the woods. So there's a little bit of like Frozen, other Weird with Net action going on here. Or you could just think of Bran on the far side of the map. He's on the other side of the wall in the far north when he climbs his tree, if you will. So pretty cool here that he's climbing the tree as a wolf. It's foreshadowing for him, you know, being a green seer. But sticking with the whole thing where the wolf spirit is like this, you know, the spirit of the King of Winter inside the statue. It just shows you like how are they going to get out? By climbing trees, meaning by using green seer magic. That's what resurrects our green zombies, or somebody like Jon, who's a King of Winter. That's pretty cool. So yeah, Bran's first warging experience. There it is. Thoughts, Tim?
Bran's first warging experience. So, yeah, like the fact that he feels the pain that the wolf had felt, and now he knows, like, oh, this is real. It's really real. And then, yeah, the sea is coming, because this is when the Ironborn are beginning to attack, right? If I'm remembering this chapter correctly. Yeah.
That's it. And also the vision clicks in for Bran. He's like, oh, the sea is coming over the wall. This must be that. He doesn't understand what it is exactly, but yeah, he understands it must be that. And of course it is. So now we're at, this is the one where Bran is, they're down in the crypts. Winterfell's being burned by Ramsay, who's taking it from Theon. So this is at the end of Clash. This is the last chapter, I think, in Clash. And it begins, the ashes fell like a soft gray snow. I think we can read through this one pretty quick, because we've talked about it a bunch of times. But he patted over dry needles and brown leaves to the edge of the wood where the pines grew thin. Beyond the open fields, he could see the great piles of man rock stark against the swirling flames. So I love the wordplay here. I've pointed out many times. The piles of man rock stark. They literally are the piles of rock owned by the Starks. So they are the piles of man rock stark. Just like a storm of rose petals blue. the blue rose petals that blew across the sky. It's the same sort of linguistic turn there. I really like it. Anyway, the piles of man rock stark against the swirling flames. The wind blew hot and rich with the smell of blood and burnt meat. So strong he began to slobber. Yet as one smell drew them onward, others warned them back. He sniffed at the drifting smoke. Men, many horses, and fire, fire, fire. No smell was more dangerous, not even the hard, cold smell of iron, the stuff of man claws and hard skin, which is armor. The smoke and ash clouded his eyes, and in the sky he saw a great winged snake whose roar was a river of flame. He bared his teeth, but then the snake was gone. We've talked about this before. You know, some people think maybe that's a dragon. It's probably not. But symbolically, it represents Jon as a dragon being reborn from Winterfell, something like that. He bared his teeth, but then the snake was gone. Behind the cliffs, tall fires were eating up the stars. That's what happens during the long night. All through the night, the fires crackled, and once there was a great roar and a crash that made the earth jump under his feet. Dogs barked and whined, and horses screamed in terror. Howls shuddered through the night, the howls of the man-pack, the wails of fear and wild shouts, laughter and screams. No beast was as noisy as man, and such a great wolf thought. He pricked up his ears and listened, and his brother growled at every sound. They prowled under the trees as piney wind blew ashes and embers through the sky. In time, the flames began to dwindle, and then they were gone. The sun rose gray and smoky that morning. I'm going to go ahead and pick it up there.
Only then did he leave the trees, stalking slow across the fields. His brother ran with him, drawn to the smell of blood and death. They padded silent through the dents the men had built of wood and grass and mud. Many and more were burned, and many and more were collapsed. Others stood as they had before. Yet nowhere did they see or scent a living man. Crows blanketed the bodies and leapt into the air screeching when his brother and he came near. The wild dogs slunk away before them. Beneath the great gray cliffs, a horse was dying noisily, struggling to rise on a broken leg and screaming when he fell. His brother circled around him, then tore out his throat while the horse kicked feebly and rolled his eyes. When he approached the carcass, his brother snapped at him and laid back his ears, and he cuffed him with a forepaw and bit his leg. They fought amidst the grass and dirt and falling ashes beside the dead horse until his brother rolled on his back in submission, tail tucked low. One more bite at his upturned throat, then he fed and let his brother feed and licked the blood off of his black fur. Okay, it's not as violent, but as someone who owns 2 dogs, this is something that I deal with on an almost regular basis, where one gets something that the other wants. There's a scuffle, but eventually, usually the smaller one, Brody, is usually going to lay over, show his belly, and then Chloe be like, oh, okay, it's okay. Thankfully, it doesn't get to the point where I got to worry about them like full on wolf fighting each other, but I can envision this.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to relate to for dog people here in the wolf chapters, for sure.
The dark place was pulling at him by then, the house of whispers where all men were blind. He could feel its cold fingers on him. The stony smell of it was a whisper up the nose. He struggled against the pull. He did not like the darkness. He was wolf. He was hunter and stalker and slayer, and he belonged with his brothers and sisters in the deep woods, running free beneath a starry sky. Okay, so when we think back to like that guy saying like wild things belong in the woods, here the wolf is thinking to himself like, yeah, I'm not meant for this. I was never meant to be a pet. And this is with Bran in him too. So it's like Bran, another instance of Bran like refusing to recognize something, just like how when he knows that he shouldn't be doing what he's doing with Hodor, but he's doing it anyway because it is a sense of, I mean, he is a kid, but there is a sense of selfishness when he tries to justify, like, it's just for a little while, Hodor. I just need to use you so I can experience things again. He does the same with Summer. There is this like little bit of selfishness where he's in the wolf's mind, so he knows the wolf knows, like, hey, this is wrong. You probably you shouldn't be raising me like a pet. But he still keeps warging into Summer. And even though the wolf is probably more gonna allow it more so than a human would, there still is that sense of like, hey, you're kind of piloting my body, and I have my own thoughts and feelings. Maybe you should recognize.
Yeah, it's kind of like if somebody really wants to be a warg, they should be living out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Where they and the wolf can live comfortably. Like bringing the wolf into the castle is the selfish thing, but that's because Bran doesn't understand warg life yet, and he will, and he will go live in the woods. But yeah, if you're a warg king, then yeah, you gotta let your shaggy boy run. Lead Roseum says, just joined, praise Garth, enjoy the show. Thank you very much, appreciate that. And let's see here. Where are we? This is another very hippie psychedelic thing for George to write our human experience as being this dull, limited thing that's not the full experience. It's like Jon thinks about it. Ghost is more alive than I am, with these extra senses and smells, and specifically being connected to the present moment in a detailed way that men are not. Except for the people who, again, live in the woods and develop those kind of instincts or whatever. So, yeah, it's a very trippy, hippie kind of thought to be like, oh yeah, the regular human experience, there's a lot more than that. And of course, it's not just that animals experience different things, but of course that we can open our third eye and see from Dorne to the wall and see directly into people's hearts. That's the full experience that is really there. So, yep, it's very psychedelic, the Wolf Dream. He didn't, the House of Whispers, the darkness, where men were blind. Like, yeah, that really stuck with me, that whole perspective there. So then he says,
He sat on his haunches, raised his head, and howled. I will not go, he cried. I am wolf. I will not go. Yet even so the darkness thickened, until it covered his eyes and filled his nose and stopped his ears. So he could not see or smell or hear or run, and the gray cliffs were gone, and the dead horse was gone, and his brother was gone, and all was black and still, and black and cold, and black and dead. And black.
Shades of Melisandre. She's red and terrible and red. And also very red.
Did I mention she's red?
So, yeah, we probably don't need to read. Well, actually, a little further. Bran, a voice is whispering softly. Bran, come back. Come back, Bran. He closed his third eye and opened the other two, the old two, the blind two. In the dark place, all men were blind. But someone was holding him. He could feel arms around him, the warmth of a body snuggled close. He could hear Hodor singing. And of course, again, they're down in the crypts. So this is more likening the warg experience to the Kings of Winter in the crypts. Bran is a King of Winter here, essentially, in the dark, down in the crypts, but he's living through astral projection magic, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's similar, again, that's what he does in the Weirwood Cave as well. So I don't think we need to beat the dead horse, if you will. Speaking of dead horses, there just was one. You kind of get the idea. We've read this section a bunch of times. But yes, I think that was the most remarkable thing about this wolf dream is the detailed description of being pulled back into his own body and how lesser of an experience it is compared to being a wolf. So like any good fantasy fan, we all wish we were wolves on some level, right? We could be a wolf, howl at the moon. Pretty cool. All right, so let's go. Even here it says, I will not go. I am a wolf. I will not go. Yet even so, the darkness thickened until it covered his eyes and filled his nose and stopped his ears, so he could not see or smell or hear or run. Like, that's such detail being given to this. It's like, man, really a lesser experience to be awake in your human body, huh? Anyway, so next up we have
like, you know what it is? It's the feeling of waking up from a dream, and you know it was a really good dream, but as soon as you wake up, you forget every detail, and then you just spend time struggling. Like, damn it, what was that dream about? It was so good. I wish I could remember. Like that. I think that's like the feeling that that he's invoking when Bran is then woken up in the next line.
Yeah, you're right. Shout out to Tool and Rosetta Stone for those of you. I'm not going to sing that one. I've already done my singing for the day. So this is Storm of Swords. And it is another beginning of a Bran chapter that starts as a wolf dream. It says, the ridge slanted sharply from the earth, a long fold of stone and soil shaped like a claw. And I kind of like how the wolves are almost like a little bit, it's not really the right word, but they're, for me as an ADHD person, and autistic people can relate to this too. Like we're very good at thinking one thing is like another, or seeing something and describing it, visualizing it in a different way. So when they're looking at a fold of stone and soil that's shaped like a claw, like that's exactly how I would see it. So I like how George has leaned into that for the wolves. You know, everything is, you know, turned into different kind of language, man rock and stuff like that. So I dig it. Trees clung to its lower slopes, pines and hawthorn and ash, but higher up the ground was bare. The ridge lines stark against the cloudy sky. It's just like the other chapter. The piles of man rock stark against the flames. And here, the ridge lines stark against the cloudy sky. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, Starks or wargs, this is a Stark. I mean, it's not cryptic to use the word Stark here, but it's just interesting. It's so parallel to the first paragraph that we just read from the other chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing, because like when George is using these naming conventions and also the wordplay, and then when he does it with words like Stark, that also have so many different meanings, because Stark can be used in so many different ways, in so many different descriptions. Sometimes it's wondering, like, are you trying to be funny? Are you throwing that in deliberately? Or sometimes it's because I always like, for me, it seems like George, you know, he doesn't waste words. And yet George himself has said, you know, I don't know if it's so much of a criticism towards people like us, but he has said, you know, sometimes a word is just a word and you're reading too deeply into it. And I'm just like, no, George, like, I don't think so. You don't seem to, like, the way he writes though, with everything so packed, it's like, no, you say that, and maybe you're just trying to like be like, no, I don't want everyone to be reading too deeply into this, but at the same time, it's like, but we kind of have to. That's sort of the way you built this story. Is like every detail is important.
Yeah, he is very much like one of those geniuses who's like, oh yeah, I just wrote a little story. It's like, no, you did a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but he definitely he does not like, I mean, if you look at the story, he does not like ego. Every egotistical character gets severe comeuppance. I mean, look at Theon, Jaime getting his hand cut off and all that stuff. Like, if you're a prideful, pretty person in Ice and Fire, you're not going to have a good time. So I think you can see that reflected in George's sort of the way he talks. He's has a certain kind of humility that he cultivates. And it's not a false humility, but it's definitely an intentional, like he's always speaks a certain way about his place in the scheme of things. And I think he has a lot of humility because of how he Hey, what are you doing? You know, his humility comes from appreciating all the greats that came before him, I think. And we see that love of his inspirations reflected inside the story when he's, giving all these odes to Tolkien and all these other authors and stuff. So that's where I think his humility comes from. But yeah, he does not. You can see egotistical characters do not do well. So yeah, he always downplays the genius of what he was doing, and that's why he needs people like us to come along and celebrate it and explain it. It really comes across better if someone else explains how smart you are than if you do it yourself. Also, so yeah, a few crowns for the kings. Thank you, Martin Krog. God bless you, baby. All right, so.
I will not come down. Someone called me a brood.
I don't know who would have made that mistake, baby. Certainly a foolish thing to say. All right, so he could feel the high stone calling him. Up he went, loping easy at first, then faster and higher, his strong legs eating up the incline. Birds burst from the branches overhead as he raced by, clawing and flapping their way into the sky. He could hear the wind sighing up among the leaves, the squirrels chittering to one another, even the sound of a pine cone. The sound a pine cone made as it tumbled to the forest floor. The smells were a song around him, a song that filled the good green world. So again, George luxuriating in this extrasensory perception of the wolves. No idea where he got this idea, this inspiration for extrasensory perception. Oh yes, that's right. Anyone who's ever taken weirwood paste knows that you can sometimes like pick apart sounds in a way that is more detailed. Anything you focus on becomes extremely detailed while eating weirwood paste. So, which of course is just a paste of weirwood seeds, as we all know. Oh, I forgot to go back and talk about all the Jojen paste symbolism in that one. I mean, check out my Jojen paste video, but Jojen scrambled up the tree. He ends up scrambled up in a tree bowl. And then it says he used the face for handholds, but Bran holds a bowl of faces in his hands. And Jojen's brains are in the bowl. And then it's like his treed friends. Like, oh yeah, Jojen does get treed. He gets turned into a weirwood paste that's in a weirwood bowl. Then, yeah, so check out the Jojen. If you haven't seen weirwood paste as people, that's like, one of my funny videos. It's good. It's also totally true. So, anyway, where were we? Gravel flew. Go ahead.
Gravel flew from beneath his paws as he gained the last few feet to stand upon the crest. The sun hung above that tall pines, huge and red, and below him the trees and hills went on and as far as he could see or smell. A kite was circling far above, dark against the pink sky. Prince. The man sound came into his head suddenly, yet he could feel the rightness of it. Prince of the Green, Prince of the Wolf's Wood. He was strong and swift and fierce, and all that lived in the good green world went in fear of him. Far below, at the base of the woods, something moved amongst the trees, a flash of gray, quick glimpsed and gone again, but it was enough to make his ears prick up. Down there, beside a swift green brook, another form slipped by, running. Wolves, he knew, his little cousins, chasing down some prey. Now the prince could see more of them, shadows on fleet gray paws, a pack. He had a pack as well, once. 5 they had been, and a 6th who stood aside. Somewhere down inside him were the sounds the men had given them to tell them from the other, but it was not by their sounds he knew them. He remembered... Next page. He remembered that scene. His brothers and his sisters, they all had smelled alike, had smelled of pack, but each was different too. His angry brother with the hot green eyes was near, the prince felt, though he had not seen him for many hunts. Yet with every sun that set, he grew more distant, and he had been the last. The others were far scattered, like leaves blown by the wild wind.
So this is worth us pointing out here, Tim. Certain amount of psychic connection between the wolves, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they can literally tell how close they are to each other. Like, what direction, closer or farther. So you can sort of see how this would work. Think about this. When Arya comes back to Winterfell, to Westeros, Nymeria is going to meet her on the shoreline or the first forest that she comes to. Like, Nymeria will know when Arya gets closer. And once Arya and Nymeria are together, Bran will be able to sense their movements through his wolf. And eventually all the Starks essentially will be psychically joined through their wolves. At the very least, Bran, Jon, and Arya, possibly Rickon, and possibly Sansa, if she's getting back into the loop with skin-changing birds. But yeah, there is a wolf net, almost. And, of course, in Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time, there's a whole there's a whole dream world that the wolves can access. And it's really just a parallel plane of reality. So it goes a little farther than this. But I did want to point this out. Like, the psychic detection of the wolves is important and will come into play. And also, you think about like the warg kings of ancient Westeros and their power. If you have multiple wargs, they can share information remotely, So you think about the Valyrian sorcerers, Marwyn the Mage in his speech about how powerful those glass candles are because the sorcerers can communicate to each other across distances. Well, it's not just the Greenseers. Any warg king or warg warrior, when they're in times where there were multiple ones of those, they'd be able to communicate to each other. And so this again shows you how devastatingly effective, warg-led armies would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is definitely set up for the end game here so that we can begin to see what is possible with the Starks working together. And it's another way that wargs would help deal with the long night as well. Remote communication would be very handy during the long night. Hard to send ravens in a snowstorm even, so the psychic links are good. And I also like the thing, 5 and 1 who stood apart. 4 now, 5 now, 4 and 1 more, the white one who has no voice. So they think about Ghost as being different and unique. Even though he's obviously from the same litter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. Okay, go ahead with...
So they were scattered like leaves blown by the wild wind.
Yeah.
Sometimes he could sense them, though, as if they were still with him, only hidden from his sight by a boulder or a stand of trees. He could not smell them, nor hear their howls by night. Yet he felt their presence at his back, all but the sister they had lost. His tail drooped. His tail drooped when he remembered her. 4 now, not 5. 4 and 1 more. The white who has no voice.
Right, and you remember they went howling crazy when Summer, or when Lady was killed.
Lady, yeah.
Yeah. So they all felt that death right in the moment. It's very sad.
Oh, and so then that line too, the white who has no voice. But if we change that from white to other white, WIGHT, they have no voice either. They are essentially slaves being remote controlled by the others.
And the same for the white trees that Ghost resembles, being basically controlled by the Greenseers. Yep. The no voice thing is definitely about agency. And so it does make you wonder why Ghost can't make any sound. Does that mean is he a tool for Bloodraven or the Weirwood Net or something? There are theories that Ghost is like more than a wolf, that he's a Greenseer, or that, like, I don't know, that Ghost is warging Jon, or, it's semantics really, it goes both ways, but it does kind of, I'm open to the idea that Ghost is more than just a wolf in a sense, like he's, I don't know, there's something there, I'm not sure exactly what it is. But Ghost seems very mystical and very different from the other wolves.
Well, if we go back to when the wolves were first found, it's mentioned like he was separated from the pack, and they say like they probably chased him. And I mean, now in nature, that is a thing. The runt of a litter will sometimes get bullied out to the point where they're just left on their own, and that might have been what happened. But yeah, it's like from the moment they found them, Ghost has always been separate. There's always been a distinction where Ghost is separated in some way, shape, or form from the rest of the pack, and that is supposed to be symbolically with Jon being separated from the other Stark children by ways of being a bastard, but us also knowing no, it's by ways of you being a Stark Targaryen by not being a sibling, but by being a cousin. Like you're the same, yet somehow you're other, and that's like the link he has going with Ghost.
And Ghost is also the first one to open his eyes. So we should actually table the Ghost talk because we're going to get to Jon's. And by the way, Tim, we are over 2 hours here. We are most of the way through Bran. Arya has just as many, and we have Jon to do. Obviously, this is going to have to be a 2-part stream here. This is really just Bran's wolf dreams that we're going to be doing today. Is your availability still the same as it used to be? Or has that changed at all?
I did send you a text saying I'm not going to be available. There's 2 Sundays that I'm not going to be available coming up. One is the very next Sunday, and then there's another in November that I'm not. But yeah, aside from that, I should be good.
Well, can you do any evenings or during the week or anything like that? Was what I meant.
Oh, those are holiday season. I'm working late, so if you want to do if you want to do a part 2 next Sunday with another guest, like by all means, I'm not going to be insulted.
Oh yeah, well, no, yeah, no, for sure. I just wanted to see. I was just curious if you're, because I know you were talking about some different things with your schedule. I didn't know how much it had changed or if you had any different availability. I think I will do part 2 of this probably during the week this week, just so it doesn't hang. Also, I haven't put out as much content the last couple weeks, so I probably will do this like Tuesday or Wednesday, part 2. And then you said you will not be around next Sunday. I'll do this different. Okay, cool. Well, let's finish with Bran and let Bebe co-host. I don't know about that. Bebe's pretty good in the chat. I don't know if I want to give her a microphone so much.
Yeah. I think next time
demonetized in about 2 minutes. God bless you.
Yeah, next time though, like I'm not gonna rely on this Libby stuff. I think I'm just gonna break down and buy a Kindle and get ebook versions of these books that I already have physical copies of. I'll just have to spend the money.
Oh, Bebe says she can curb the mouth. I don't know. We'll see. Have me on the smile. I'll just smile and nod, Will says. Oh, I do voices. Yeah. Double demonetized. Exactly. All right. So, where were we? Okay. So this is all, again, this is mostly, we're still reading. It's not over yet. 4 and 1, the white who had no voice. Okay. Keep going.
These woods belong to them. The snowy slopes and stony hills, the great green pines and the golden leaf oaks, the rushing streams and blue lakes, fringed with fingers of white frost. But his sister had left the wilds to walk in the halls of Man Rock where other hunters ruled. And once within those halls, it was hard to find the path back out. The wolf prince remembered.
So this is, again, more King of Winter stuff. Like, once your spirit gets trapped in a statue, it's hard to find your way out, you know. It works pretty well. The halls of Man Rock where other hunters ruled. And then it reflects the whole thing about wild things belong in the wild as well, as we read earlier. All right, keep going. Oh, I need to change the page, right? Yes.
Yeah. The wind shifted suddenly. Deer and fear and blood. The scent of prey woke the hunger in him. The prince sniffed the air again, turning, and then he was off, bounding along the ridgetop with jaws half parted. The far side of the ridge was steeper than the one he'd come up, but he flew surefoot over stones and roots and rotting leaves, down the slope and through the trees, long strides eating up the ground. The scent pulled him onward, ever faster. The deer was down and dying when he reached her. ringed by 8 of his small gray cousins. The heads of the pack had begun to feed, the male first and then his female, taking turns tearing flesh from the red underbelly of their prey. The others waited patiently, all but the all but the tail, who paced in a wary circle a few strides from the rest, his own tail tucked low. He would eat the last of all, whatever his brothers left him. You get the scraps. The prince was downwind, so they did not sense him until he leapt up upon a fallen log 6 strides from where they fed. The tail saw him first, gave a piteous whine and slunk away. His pack brothers turned at the sound and bared their teeth, snarling, all but the head male and female. The dire wolf answered the snarls with a low warning growl and showed them his own teeth. He was bigger than his cousins, twice the size of the scrawny tail, half again as larger as the 2 pack heads. He leapt down into their midst, and 3 of them broke, melting away into the brush. Another came at him, teeth snapping. He met the attack head on, caught the wolf's leg in his jaws when they met, and flung him aside, yelping and limping. And then there was only the head wolf to face, the great gray male with his bloody muzzle fresh from the prey's soft belly. There was white on his muzzle as well, to mark him as an old wolf, but when his mouth opened, red slobber ran from his teeth. He has no fear, the prince thought, no more than me. It would be a good fight. They went for each other. Long they fought, rolling together over roots and stones and fallen leaves, and the scattered entrails of the prey, tearing at each other with tooth and claw. Breaking apart, circling each other around, and bolting in to fight again. The prince was larger and much the stronger, but his cousin had a pack. So he could be like, yo, like the one that's calling out, he's like, yeah, but he's got friends, so it's like, yo, jump that fool. The prince was larger and much stronger, but his cousin had a pack. The female prowled around them closely, snuffling and snarling, and would interpose herself within her mate. Whenever her mate broke off bloodied. From time to time, the other wolves would dart in as well, to snap at a leg or an ear when the prince was turned the other way. One angered him so much that he whirled in a black fury and tore out the attacker's throat. And after that, the others kept their distance. And as the last red light was filtering through the green boughs and golden, the old wolf lay down weary in the dirt and rolled over to expose his throat and belly. It was submission. The prince sniffed at him and licked the blood from fur and flesh. When the old wolf gave a soft whimper, the dire wolf turned away. He was very hungry now, and the prey was his. Hodor! The sudden sound made him stop and snarl. The wolves regarded him with green and yellow eyes, bright with the last light of day. None of them had heard it. It was a queer wind that blew only in his ears. He buried his jaws in the deer's belly and tore off a mouthful of flesh. Hodor! Hodor! No, he thought. No, I won't. It was a boy's thought, not a dire wolf's. The woods were darkening all about him, until only the shadows of the trees remained, and the glow of his cousin's eyes. And through those and behind those eyes, he saw a big man's grinning face and a stone vault whose walls were spotted with niter? Is that what that word
Yeah.
is?
Correct.
The rich, warm taste of blood faded on his tongue. No, don't. I want to eat. I want to.
Okay.
I want.
All right. So.
Yep.
Wow.
What is
He called this pack of wolves was called others like 3 times. And then only the shadows of the trees remained and the glow of the eyes. A shadow emerged from the dark of the wood, Tim. Like this is direct call out to the prologue where the others are the shadows of the wood and their eyes glow, of course, like stars. And so here, yes, he's drawn a picture of the others as Bran is disappearing from this scene. It's like all the physical world drops away and he can see the spiritual world Kind of like when Bilbo puts on, or Frodo puts on the ring and he can see the true form of the Nazgul. He's seeing the true form here. He's seeing the others as shadows of the trees with glowing eyes. And through those and behind those eyes, he saw a big man's grinning face. That's the great other. It's Azor Ahai, it's Night King, whatever you want to say. Like, that's the face behind the others. That's pretty dope. Mm-hmm. It's like Bran looking into the heart of winter, essentially. It's the same thing. That's really cool. I hadn't caught that before. Wow. That jumps out to you, that language. And so this is kind of the other thing, sorry, Tim, I'll let you go ahead in just a second. The other thing that's similar to the Waymar thing is that Waymar fails his test, but they were looking for Jon Snow. And I've always made the point, like many other people, that what they would have done with Jon is turned him into a Night King. They would have turned him into a leader of the others. And this is what Summer does here. Summer shows up and takes over the pack. Just as Waymar rises from the dead with one blue eye, like a icy Odin or like a icy Bloodraven figure, symbolically the leader of the others, who were 6, and he's the 7th. So here the numbers are slightly different, but not actually. So there was 8 in this pack, but the tail disappears, and then he replaces the head. And it says, so when he's fighting, there were 6 that were watching, I think, right? Because he's fighting 2. Anyway, seems pretty similar. And yeah, the wolf is replacing and becoming the leader of this pack. So, very interesting. I do think Jon's body will be stolen and that he'll become a leader of the others, but also his very, very end game could involve leading the others back into the trees as well, just as Bran has taken over the pack here. Tim, your thoughts?
Yeah, what I was getting on was, because in the beginning of the stream, you had said that you didn't see the Bran as a Night's King figure. Yet here with this scene, I can see one with, if the wolves being referred to as others, if they are like a stand-in, and Summer is now made the head, but it's Bran who is warged into Summer when this happens, then Bran is a Night's King's figure in this sort of instance. He becomes the king. He's the new head of the other wolves. So in a sense, so I would say, like, no, there are instances where Bran does meet the Night's King character archetype in the same way that Jon does as well. It's just I think it's because Bran's a kid that we kind of instill more of an innocence on him, that we wouldn't see him as a Night's King figure the way we would see someone like Euron. But there definitely are instances, and this is one of them.
So what's interesting to pay attention to is the part of the archetype that is being spelled out. So I see what you're getting at here. What does Bran do that is potentially Night King like? He takes over a pack of wolves that are like the others. Now, the thing is that taking over, leading the others, there's 2 versions of that, as I was just talking about. There's the idea of the others stealing someone like Jon to be a vessel to put their Night King spirit in. But there's also the idea of leading the others back into the trees, like the ultimate solve for all of this. And the whole point of realizing the others were kicked out of the weirwood nest, like, kicked out of the weirwood trees, like birds kicked out of the nest, is that the answer to the problem is to put them back in. And so Bran's major role will be to download the hive mind into his brain that will empty out the trees. I believe it's going to be Jon who will be the Stark wolf that takes over the others' pack and leads them back into the weirwood net, because Bran's going to be king. So I don't see how he could do that. But he'll obviously be involved in this whole thing because he's the one who's emptying out the weirwood net. And he's the one who would understand what has to be done to put the others back into the weirwood net. So, yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be involved.
Yeah.
What
like what my thought train was like. I think when we link up Bran and Jon, it's like what Bran is doing the things on a symbolic level that Jon will physically have to carry out. It's like Jon will have to be Bran's legs. This is what needs to be done in the symbolic sense, and then
Yeah.
Jon's going to be the one who actually has to go walk off and do it. And like Bran needs to lead them in by opening the weirwood net to get them back in, but then Jon has to physically put them in there. You need someone doing just as Bran's doing all the mind work, but someone has to do the leg work. Someone has to do all the heavy lifting, since Bran can't, since he's paralyzed.
Yep. And then Dany, of course, you've got all of her freeing of the slaves foreshadowing, pointing at the idea that she's going to help free the others from bondage. Or the whites, rather, who are like enslaved souls.
And that's what makes like why Bran has Hodor. Hodor is acting, because Hodor acts as his legs. Jon is like legs with more agency.
Right. And Hodor also has Mad King of Winter symbolism. He takes up a sword from the King of Winter crypts. Then when he's in the north fighting the others, he gets tears frozen in his eyes. So he gets ice eyes like the famous Jon Ice Eyes Stark. And he gets snot frozen in his beard. So he has a snow beard like Edric Snowbeard Stark. So Hodor is extremely archetypal as a King of Winter. And a giant as well. So yeah, I do think that ultimately some of the teamwork between Bran and Hodor will end up being foreshadowing for Bran and Jon. I don't think that Bran will be piloting Jon, but I do think Bran will help Jon find his way back to his own body, because the others are going to steal his body. Jon's ghost is going to be in Ghost. So we literally got to steal his body back. I'm sure Bran will have something to do with that. So, yeah, that could also be part of this foreshadowing here of taking back over the wolf pack. So let's see, where were we here? Which more Bran we got? This is Storm as well. Yeah, Hodor likes to chop at trees. He likes to fight trees. You know, just kind of like fighting others. Let's see. Jojen, what did you mean about a teacher? Bran asked. You're my teacher. I know I never marked the tree, but I will next time. My third eye is open like you wanted. So wide open I fear you may fall through it and live all the rest of your days as a wolf of the woods. I won't, I promise. The boy promises. Will the wolf remember? You run with Summer, you hunt with him, kill with him, but you bend to his will more than him to yours. I just forget, Bran complained. I'm only 9. I'll be better when I'm older. Even Florian the Fool and Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight weren't great knights when they were 9. That is true, said Jojen, and a wise thing to say if the days were still growing longer, but they aren't. You are a summer child, I know. Tell me the words of House Stark. Winter's coming. Just saying it made Bran feel cold. Jojen gave a solemn nod. I dreamed of a winged wolf bound to earth by chains of stone and came to Winterfell to free him. The chains are off you now, yet you still do not fly. Then you teach me. Bran still feared the three-eyed crow who haunted his dreams sometimes, pecking endlessly at the skin between his eyes and telling him to fly. You're a greenseer. Go ahead.
Before we go on, I do want to say, like, when Bran says, like, well, I'm only 9. Now, for us as a modern day audience, that would be a reasonable thing to say. Like, yeah, he's only a kid. You shouldn't expect him to pick up on this. But remembering the world that they're in, and it's like, Bran, you're the son of a man who told a 3-year-old he has to grow up. It's like, no, I'm only 9 is not an excuse. Not when you got 12-year-olds who are running entire countries. The thought, like it's such a disconnect between of when you're a child versus when you're an adult and when you're supposed to start being more responsible. Like again, like for us, that'd be fine. Bran can say I'm a kid for like another 6 years and still have it be a valid excuse. But in this world, Jojen's like, yeah, no, you're not. I'm not having that. 9 is 1 year away from 10, and you're basically a man grown at this point. Mute it. You're muted.
I wonder what. Yeah, it's like 9. Come on, really a man grown. Time to grow up. Yeah, there's no childhood in this book. So, real quick, Ryan Lewis, you are incorrect, sir. All the swords in the crypts are in fact iron. Brandon's sword is not Valyrian steel. There's only one Valyrian steel sword owned by House Stark, and it's the one that Ned carries. They hand it down. They do not put that in the crypts. All the swords in the crypts are black iron. 100%. I don't know where you got that idea, but just want to straighten that out. So unconfirmed. You are incorrect, sir. With all respect. And let's see here. Also, the fact that they used iron is not in conflict with the idea that the first men didn't have steel. Crude iron predates the forging of good iron and then steel. So just as they have iron on the Iron Islands in ancient day, they would have been making horseshoes and basic shit like that from crude iron. So anyways, the Andals had steel. That's what they had, which is totally different. Let's see. Is this...
I think you went down a page accidentally.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, pick it up where you stopped.
So, no, said Jojen, only a boy who dreams. The Green Seers were more than that. They were wargs as well, as you are, and the greatest of them could wear the skins of any beast that flies or swims or crawls, and could look through the eyes of the weirwoods as well, and see the truth that lies beneath the world.
Ooh, he just said swims, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Confirmed.
Oh.
Confirmed. Far wind, skin changing. Confirmed.
Yeah. So like you said, like with psychic links and in the long night and using animals as reconnaissance. Well, yeah, that would be necessary. You need things that are on land and in the sky, but also in the sea if you're going to be trying to use them in that sort of way.
And seals and sea lions and whales are what you'd want to skin change. Smart animals, mammals, preferably.
Yeah.
Preferably mammals that swim.
You don't want to skin change a fish with your 3 brain cells and then just be like, do what now?
Yeah, the twim.
Do what now?
Twim.
He's just gonna be out there saying, "Do what now?" all day.
Do what now? That's funny.
The gods give many gifts, Bran. My sister is a hunter. It is given to her to run swiftly and stand so still she seems to vanish. She has sharp ears, keen eyes, a steady hand with net and spear. She can breathe the mud and fly through trees. I could not do these things, no more than you could. To me, the gods gave the green dreams, and to you. You could be more than me, Bran. You are the winged wolf, and there is no saying how far and high you might fly. If you had someone to teach you, how can I help you master a gift I do not understand? We remember the first men in the neck, and the children of the forest who were their friends. But so much is forgotten, and so much we never knew. So yeah, this is like back to that idea whenever they say the North remembers, and we're like, no, you don't. The North forgets a lot. And Jojen is pointing that out.
Yeah. It's a really nice passage there. It's a bit of philosophy, a bit of world building all wrapped up. And then again, you see this metaphor of flying. So yeah, it's just coaching for Bran, and yeah, any beast that flies or swims or crawls. I'm definitely gonna use that in my Deep Ones essay. Let's see here. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to read from this passage. Nope, that's it. Oh, and this is now A Dance with Dragons that I'll be moving to. Farwind skin changing confirmed. Love that. Let's see here. They're looking for a village. Oh, this is this is when Cold Hands has split from them, circled back to deal with the mutineers. That's and they're looking for a village. And Bran says, "Oh, here we go." Actually, I'm going to go back a page. Hours passed in silence. Ahead, shadows began to steal between the trees, the long fingers of the dusk. Dark came early this far north. Bran had come to dread that. Each day seemed shorter than the last, and where the days were cold, the nights were bitter cruel. Mira halted them again. We should have come on the village by now. Her village sounded hushed. Her voice sounded hushed and strange, sorry. Could we have passed it? Bran asked. I hope not. We need to find shelter before nightfall. She was not wrong. Jojen's lips were blue, Mira's cheeks dark red. Bran's own face had gone numb. Hodor's beard was solid ice. As I told you, Snowbeard. Snow caked his legs almost to the knee, and Bran had felt him stagger more than once. No one was as strong as Hodor. No one. If even his great strength was failing. Summer can find the village, Bran said suddenly, his words misting in the air. He did not wait to hear what Mira might say, but closed his eyes and let himself flow from his broken body. As he slipped inside Summer's skin, the dead woods came to sudden life. Where before there had been silence, now he heard wind in the trees, Hodor's breathing, the elk pawing at the ground in search of fodder. Familiar scents filled his nostrils. Wet leaves and dead grass, the rotted carcass of a squirrel decaying in the brush, the sour stink of man sweat, the musky odor of the elk. Food, meat. The elk sensed his interest. He turned his head towards the direwolf, wary, and lowered his great antlers. He is not prey, the boy whispered to the beast who shared his skin. Leave him. Run. All right, go ahead.
Summer ran. Across the lake he raced, his paws kicking up a spray of snow behind him. The trees stood shoulder to shoulder, like men in a battle line, all cloaked in white. Over roots and rocks the direwolf sped. Through a drift of old snow, the crust crackling beneath his weight. His paws grew wet and cold. The next hill was covered with pines, and the sharp scent of their needles filled the air. When he reached the top, he turned in a circle, sniffing at the hot air, then raised his head and howled. The smells were there. Man smells. Ashes, Bran thought. Old and faint, but ashes. It was the smell of burnt wood, soot, and charcoal. A dead fire. He shook the snow off his muzzle. The wind was gustling, so the smells were hard to follow. The wolf turned this way and that, sniffing. All around were heaps of snow and tall trees garbed in white. The wolf let his tongue loll out between his teeth, tasting the frigid air, his breath misting as snowflakes melted on his tongue. When he trotted toward the scent, Hodor lumbered after him at once. The elk took longer to decide, so Bran returned reluctantly to his own body and said, That way. Follow Summer. I smelled it. As the first sliver of a crescent moon came peeking through the clouds, they finally stumbled into the village by the lake. They had almost walked straight through it. From the ice, the village looked no different than a dozen other spots along the lake shore. Buried under drifts of snow, the round stone houses could just as easily have been boulders, or hillocks, or fallen logs, like the deadfall that Jojen had mistaken for a building the day before, until they dug down into it and found only broken branches and rotting logs. The village was empty, abandoned by the wildlings who had once lived there. Like all the other villages that had passed, some had been burned, as if the inhabitants had wanted to make certain they could not come creeping back. But this one had been spared the torch. Beneath the snow they found a dozen huts and a long hall, with its sod roof and thick walls of rough-hewn logs. At least we will be out of the wind, Bran said. Hodor, said Hodor. Mira slid down the elk's back. She and her brother helped lift Bran out of the wicker basket. Might be the wildlings left some food behind, she said.
Okay, so hang
That
on right here. I think I want to actually skip ahead a bit to. I think there's another jumping in summer. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. Sleep would not come, could not come. Instead, there was wind, the biting cold, moonlight on snow, and fire. He was back inside summer, long leagues away, and the night was rank with the smell of blood. The scent was strong. A kill, not far. The flesh would still be warm. Slava ran between his teeth, and the hunger woke inside him. Not elk, not deer, not this. The direwolf moved towards the meat, a gaunt gray shadow sliding from tree to tree, through pools of moonlight and over mounds of snow. The wind gusted around him, shifting. He lost the scent, found it, then lost it again. As he searched for it once more, a distant sound made his ears prick up. Wolf, he knew at once. Summer stalked toward the sound, wary now. Soon enough, the scent of blood was back, but now there were other smells. Piss and dead skins, bird shit, feathers, and wolf, wolf, wolf. A pack. He would need to fight for his meat. They smelled him too. As he moved out from among the darkness of the trees into the bloody glade, they were watching him. The female was chewing on a leather boot that still had half a leg in it, but she let it fall at his approach. The leader of the pack, an old male with a grizzled white muzzle and a blind eye, everyone say hi to Vermeer Sixskins, moved out to meet him, snarling, his teeth bared. Behind him, a younger male showed his fangs as well. The direwolf's pale yellow eyes drank in the sights around them. A nest of entrails coiled through a bush and tangled within the branches. Steam rising from an open belly, rich with the smells of blood and meat. A head staring sightlessly up at a horned moon, cheeks ripped and torn down to bloody bone. Pits for the eyes, a neck ending in a ragged stump. A pool of frozen blood, glistening red and black. Go ahead, Tim.
men. The stink of them filled the world. Alive, they had been as many as the fingers on a man's paw, but now they were none. Dead, done, meat. Cloaked and hooded, once, but the wolves had torn their clothing into pieces in their frenzy to get at the flesh. Those who still had faces wore thick beards crusted with ice and frozen snot. The falling snow had begun to bury what remained of them, so pale against the black of ragged cloaks and breeches. Black. Long leagues away, the boy stirred uneasily. Black. Night's Watch. They were Night's Watch. The direwolf did not care. They were meat. He was hungry. The eyes of the three wolves glowed yellow. The direwolf swung his head from side to side, nostrils flaring, then bared his fangs in a snarl. The younger male backed away. The direwolf could smell the fear in him. Tail, he knew. But the one-eyed wolf answered with a growl and moved to block his advance. Head, and he does not fear me, though I am twice his size. Their eyes met. Warg. Then the two rushed together, the wolf and direwolf, and there was no more time for thought. The world shrank down to tooth and claw, snow flying as they rolled and spun and tore in one another, the other wolf snarling and snapping around them. His eyes closed on matted fur slick with hoarfrost, on a limb thin as a dry stick, but the one-eyed wolf clawed at his belly and tore himself free, rolled, lunged for him. Yellow fangs snapped closed on his throat, but he shook off his old gray cousin as he would a rat, then charged after him, knocked him down. Rolling, ripping, kicking, they fought until the both of them were ragged and fresh blood dappled the snows around them. But finally, the old one-eyed wolf lay down and showed his belly. The direwolf snapped at him twice more, sniffed at his butt, then lifted a leg over him. A few snaps and a warning growl, and the female and the tail submitted too. The pack was... Did he just pee on him? Is that what's happened?
Yeah. I want to piss on you. Yes, it's true. Like, woo, woo, woo. There it is.
Uh, the pack was his, the prey as well. He went from man to man, sniffing before settling on the biggest, a faceless thing who clutched black iron in one hand. His other hand was missing, severed at the wrist, the stump bound up in leather. Blood flowed thick and sluggish from the slash across his throat. The wolf lapped at it with his tongue, licked the ragged eyeless ruin of his nose and cheeks, then buried his muzzle in his neck and tore it open, gulping down a gobbet of sweet meat. No flesh had ever tasted half as good. When he was done with that one, he moved to the next and devoured the choicest bits of that man too. Ravens watched him from the trees, squatting dark-eyed and silent on the branches as snow drifted down around them. The other wolves made do with his leavings. The old male fed first, then the female, then the tail. They were his now. They were pack. No, the boy whispered. We have another pack. Lady's dead and maybe Greywind too. But somewhere there's still Shaggy Dog and Nymeria and Ghost. Remember Ghost? Falling snow and feasting wolves began to dim. Warmth beat against his face, comforting as a mother's kisses. Fire, he thought. Smoke. His nose twitched His nose twitched to the smell of roasting meat, and then the forest fell away, and he was back in the long hall again, back in his broken body, staring at a fire. Mira Reed was turning a chunk of raw red flesh above the flames, letting it char and spit. Just in time, she said. Bran rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand and wriggled backward against the wall to sit. You almost slept through supper. The Rangers found a sow. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, the pig out in the middle of this frozen, yeah. Behind her.
Hodor was tearing eagerly at a chunk of hot, charred flesh as blood and grease ran down into his beard. Wisps of smoke rose from between his fingers. Hodor, he muttered between bites. Hodor, Hodor. His sword lay on the earthen floor beside him. Jojen Reed nipped at his own joint with small bites, chewing each chunk of meat a dozen times before swallowing. The ranger killed a pig. Cold Hand stood beside the door, Raven on his arm, both staring at the fire. Reflections from the flames glittered off 4 black eyes. He does not eat, Bran remembered, and he fears the flames. Bran's just putting all this together. He's like, wait a minute. Cold Hands is dead. That's not pig. And
yeah. Even Jojen, too, the way Jojen is chewing, he's like, this isn't pork. It's like the fact he's chewing so slowly before swallowing. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Hodor's got no... Only Jojen seemed aware... Oh, so let's see.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, we don't need to go through the whole chapter, but I just wanted to get that punctuation of popping out of the wolf dream and then being like, oh, there's mystery meat here. Wonder where that came from. Well, we just saw where it came from. And those are, of course...
Yeah. It made me think, okay, so have you ever seen Rocky Horror Picture Show?
A long time ago. I am not one of those... I don't like musicals. I can't do musicals, yeah.
So if you're familiar with the callbacks that they do during that show, in the scene where there's like, everyone knows, Rocky knows, but he doesn't care, and it turns out they're eating the meat they're eating is human flesh, and it turns out it was meatloaf, and the callback is like, oh, meatloaf again. But Rocky, even when they find out that it's human flesh, Rocky just keeps eating. So Hodor is like Rocky in that scene. It's like, oh, he knows, but he just doesn't care.
There you go. So yeah, this scene is great. We should read this whole the other 2 Bran dance chapters. It's all great stuff. But okay, so let me see. I think that was... Oh no, there's one more quote we got to read from Bran, and then we will call this one a wrap. Cleo is losing her mind back there, but okay, so The moon was a crescent, thin and sharp as the blade of a knife. Snowflakes drifted down soundlessly to cloak the soldier pines and sentinels in white, so more trees wearing white. I mean, there's just others everywhere when you're north of the wall. George is constantly putting them in all the scenes, basically. The drifts grew so deep that they covered the entrance to the caves, leaving a white wall that Summer had to dig through whenever he went outside to join his pack and hunt. That's interesting. So the white snow wall covers up Weirwood Caves. We know that's true. The Night Fort has a giant weirwood organism and a cave underneath the wall with the black gate. So probably this is another clue that the entire wall is built along and with the power of such weirwood organisms. Let's see here. Wait, what happened? Sorry, I skipped my place. Okay. Let's see. The drifts. Okay, leaving a white wall that Summer had to dig through whenever he went outside to join his pack and hunt. So I guess that's the 3 that he's taken over. So Summer is still leading that pack around outside, which is really funny to think about Varamir Sixskins. He looks at Jon and he's like, oh, that's a second life fit for a king. And he's thinking about how strong Jon might be and Ghost and all this stuff. And then he ends up stuck in One Eye, his wolf, right? And then he fights another wolf. And we can see that Bran recognizes that Varamir's a warg, which means that Varamir probably recognizes that Summer has a person inside of him. So what do you think Varamir's train of thought is? He sees a different dire wolf that's being warged. He's like, God damn, these Starks, probably. Like,
and then I can just imagine, like, when the pack becomes hit. Well, in Summer's mind, or I guess in Bran/Summer's mind, the pack becomes his. That's also like Varamir's definitely cussing that part out. Like, I lost my wolves. Until Bran gets woken up, and then Varamir probably has to like quick regain control and be like, no, you're not his. Doesn't matter. That fight didn't happen. Come back home.
Yeah, it's interesting just to think about Varamir being repeatedly hemmed in by Starks like that. So it's pretty dope. So flying was even better than climbing. Slipping into Summer's skin had become as easy for him as slipping on a pair of breeches once had been, before his back was broken. Changing his own skin for a raven's night black feathers had been harder, but not as hard as he had feared, not with these ravens. A wild stallion will buck and kick when a man tries to mount him, and try to bite the hand that slips the bit beneath his teeth, Lord Brynden said. But a horse that has known one rider will accept another. Young or old, these birds have all been ridden. Choose one now and fly. He chose one bird, and then another, without success, but the third raven looked at him with shrewd black eyes, tilted its head, and gave a quark. And quick as that, he was not a boy looking at a raven, but a raven looking at a boy. The song of the river suddenly grew louder. The torches burned a little brighter than before, and the air was full of strange smells. When he tried to speak, it came out in a scream, and his first flight ended when he crashed into the wall and ended back inside his own broken body. The raven was unhurt. It flew to him and landed on his arm, and Bran stroked his feathers and slipped inside of it again. Before long, he was flying around the cavern, weaving through the long stone teeth that hung down from the ceiling, even flapping out over the abyss and swooping down into its cold black depths. Then he realized he was not alone. Go ahead.
Someone else was in the Raven, he told Lord Brynden, once he had returned to his own skin. Some girl. I felt her. A woman. Of those who sing the song of earth, his teacher said. Long dead. Yet a part of her remains, just as a part of you would remain in summer if your boy's flesh were to die upon the morrow. A shadow on the soul. She will not harm you. Do all the birds have singers in them? All, Lord Brynden said. It was the singers who taught the first men to send messages by raven. But in those days, the birds would speak the words. The trees remember, but men forget. And so now they write the messages on parchment, and tied them around the feet of birds who have never shared their skin. Old Nan had told him the same story once, Bran remembered, but when he asked Robb if it was true, his brother laughed and asked him if he believed in Grumpkins too. He wished Robb were with them now. I'd tell him I could fly, but he wouldn't believe, so I'd have to show him. I bet that he could learn to fly too, him and Arya and Sansa, even baby Rickon and Jon Snow. Yeah, like, and that's the thing, Bran. Like, they could all learn if they were around.
Mm-hmm. And probably Lyanna and Brandon.
Mm-hmm. We could all be, and maybe even Ned if he would, pull the stick out of his ass. We could all be ravens and live in Maester Luwin's rookery. That was just another silly dream, though. Some days Bran wondered if all of this wasn't just some dream. Oh, sorry. Before I go on, it did maybe think, because of the House Lothston video, someone in my comments did say that they think that House Went, which is where Catelyn comes from, might be because House Went, they take as their sigil 9 black bats, so it's another bat coming after the bat Lothston. They suggested maybe House Went is like a branch family of Lothston, and that would connect the Starks and the Tullys even further to Lothston. So that also raises the idea of a Harrenhal house and the God's Eye Lake and all that Greenseer stuff. Maybe there's something inane in the Tullys through the Went line if the Wents are an offshoot of Lothston. So I'll have to look up the comment. Wasn't mine, but it did get my head reeling again when I read that. And I'm like, oh, that's because I asked people, I'm like, tell me your thoughts on this. And I'm like, oh, that's good. That's good. Write that down.
Well, the Tullys themselves are a First Man house. Even though the name of the house sounds like it would be Andal, they are a First Man house. And as we know, the ancient Tullys used to, and I'm going to show you some new artwork I just downloaded, used to skin change fish and stuff. Where is that damn artwork? Oh, maybe it's in downloads. Yes. Oh, man. Look at this, dude. Look at this. Mm-hmm. By Svetoslav Petrov. So there's Hoster Tully in his Viking funeral boat. Now, here's the thing. Not only do they do the Viking funerals, they talk about watery halls where the Tullys hold eternal court, and they dress up like fish people. So might be something slightly different than the deep ones who are from the oceans and not the rivers. Or it could be that the first Tullys developed these customs when they lived by the ocean and then just took them to the river. One or the other. I actually think the Tullys could be connected to House Fisher. Do you know about House Fisher?
No, that's...
This is a good place to bring this up. So there are 3 houses that are said to be ancient kings of the rivers. Blackwoods, Brackens, and the Fishers. The Mudds also. But when they say we don't know who was the oldest, they say it might have been Fisher or Blackwood or Bracken who was the first. But House Fisher, their sigil has a gray catfish on blue.
Yeah.
And the Tullys have a silver fish on red and blue. And obviously Catelyn has catfish symbolism. And House Fisher was linked to an isle called the Misty Isle, whose location has not been specified. Yes, Fisher Kings. The location has not been specified, but supposedly somewhere in the River Trident. So I think these original River Kings of Fisher who disappeared, I bet you that Tully is a continuation of that house in just the same way that Went is a continuation of Lothston. And I absolutely think that's what the sigil implies. I'd also notice that 9 black bats are similar to the 9 swords on the Stark crown, potentially.
Yeah, and just for a little, in the process of making that video, when I was trying to find as much Danelle Lothston artwork as I can, there was a lot of fan art of Dark Sansa, being a Witch Queen of Harrenhal, because she's with Peter Baelish, and Peter Baelish, even though he's hanging out in the Vale, he's technically the Lord of Harrenhal right now. So with yeah, so like with the Sansa Catelyn Lothston link, it all started making even more sense, and that would be cool. That would be a cool direction for Sansa to go in, to be another Witch Queen of Harrenhal figure.
Well,
But
and
I
then,
think she's doing, yeah.
well, the there's that hearsay that goes around King's Landing that she turned into like a wolf with bat wings and flew away from the tower. So
Yeah, and we were talking like Jon, if that's true, like how a good personal sigil for Jon would be a wolf with dragon wings, while a wolf with bat wings is like sort of the same. That's going down that same road.
it's very dragony, yeah. So the idea of a Fisher King from a misty isle, that's very obviously King Arthur stuff, and reference to Avalon, which, like the Isle of Faces, is guarded by magical mists. So one even wonders if the Fishers maybe were from the Isle of Faces before, like before the Long Night and before the Pact and stuff. Maybe that's the Misty Isle.
And just because I realized I didn't show my, because I actually got a Stark shirt for this because he had mentioned Rob. So we got the wolf's head with the iron crown over the skull. This is a Rob Stark shirt.
Preston Jacobs goes on at great length about Sansa being related to Mad Donnell. Oh, you're on Preston Jacobs' corner. Oh, God. I'm sorry, Tim. I didn't mean to do that to you.
Okay.
You might get some strange comments.
I've watched a couple of PJ's videos and I'm not a fan. Nothing against the guy personally.
So his time traveling Bran series is the one that I really liked, as well as I like his Dragon Hatcher theory as well. But anybody that gets into like weird parentage theories or secretly alive theories, like I'm always skeptical on that. In any case, yeah, you might get some. You might have to end up checking out what he has to say. I don't know if you're going to get into this, but apparently there are theories out there. But that does make sense. I could totally see Sansa, at least archetypally, being compared to Donnell Lawston. That does make sense.
Yeah, it's all the. I mean, the link is there. Just the link is there because of the whole redhead thing, and we've talked about like George has a thing for redheads. He really does. So him linking his redhead also to his Elizabeth Bathory. His having fun with history, because that's also where Donnell Lawson is a straight rip of Elizabeth Bathory. It would make sense for him to link at least one Stark child to that as well.
Interesting. That would be a good line of research, actually. Okay, cool. So that is all of Bran's warging experiences. So yeah, we're going to call it here. And we'll come back, or I'll come back this week and do Arya and Jon. I might do an evening stream just to do a little time zone flexibility, or I might do it at like 3 o'clock on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll decide today and post the stream. I'll confab with Maynard James Plum, and we'll schedule the stream for this week. But yeah, we'll finish it off then. So this will end up being Bran's Wolf Dreams. Yeah, I know. I gotta go take care of Cleo, man. She's done. It's been 3 hours. So, all right, guys. So make sure to go check out Tim's Donnell Lawston video. Make sure you're subscribed to the Grey Waste Tim YouTube channel and my channel if you're not subscribed. And
go ahead.
I
was gonna say, even though I won't be here next week because circumstances are keeping me from coming on, I am gonna be working on I already have ideas for the next video. And of course, I'm also Zothic Legend Cycle still being worked on as well. But the next scripted video that's going to be another purely Song of Ice and Fire one is probably going to be more of that other idea I had, the Ash and the Ash Reverence to Guy, Ash as the vein of the Heart of Darkness, which I'm going to title Lovecraft Canal, because I'm also going to look at the real tragedy of Love Canal. George, being from Jersey, would be very familiar with that.
Oh, I don't even know what that is. That sounds interesting. Is that a pollution thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, sadly, we still know all too well in today's age, which you just think of, like, Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi, the current situation. Love Canal is like one of the first big instances of this happening.
It's more of those than you want to think about, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we will look forward to that. That sounds cool. I'll be curious to see you develop that a little bit. We've talked about that idea, and I definitely think there is legs. And at the end of the day, I think that's part of what Martin is doing with all the squid ink symbolism. You know, the inky black darkness that spreads from the squid complements your idea very well. So, because you have to remember, the squid is the first oily black stone. All the other oily black stone is really just world building out the sea stone chair. The sea stone chair is the thing that's most critical for our story. So, yeah, I think all the oily black stone is essentially like squids. You know, they're all squid rocks. They create darkness. So, cool, Tim. And thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate y'all. Especially Bebe the Bard. Everybody, but especially Bebe. And I will see you again this week. $5 a month to become a squisher. And you get a free super chat message a month, too. So like I said, I will post the this week's stream tonight. So look for that in your YouTube feed. And with that, I bid you adieu.